Praise the Lord, you guys. Thanks for your patience. We were dealing with a little bit of tech stuff in back in the backstage area. So welcome to the Brit Happens channel, where I recently had the most depressing moment of having to take down my little tree and all my Christmas ducks. But I am now starting a new collection of OG ducks. So we'll start fresh. Y'all, we have today a couple extremely special guests to talk about the sallyport footage. I've already announced that we're going to have JON, but we also have, you may know her as Video Jesus, you may know her as Abby. She's going to be helping us out with some of this techie stuff because I have the technological literacy of an 80-year-old woman. So, guys, please briefly view this little claim to fame for JON, because I want everybody to see this major accomplishment.
Next is Class Clown. Class Clown.
The nominees are
Class Clown, JON, Auntie Deb, this is fixed, Matt McCabe, the Glera, with an honorable mention to Kevin from South Boston, which when I find him, I'm going to wring his fat drunk neck for not following my rules.
For not following my rules. Woohoo!
Thank you for nominating me and for voting for me, and to win nominated for is incredible. I want to thank you so much. Oh my God, this thing's huge. It's enormous.
I wasn't even drinking.
I want to thank anyone that voted for me.
No.
Yeah, this is just our personalities, guys.
Oh my God, you can hear me?
It's a huge thing to be nominated in a category that has Deb, Will the Glera, and Matt McCabe to be considered Class Clown. Thank you. I would also like to thank Mike Crawford. He was the one that started, gave me my start, the first show. I want to thank the read on the ground people. I want to thank anyone that voted for me. Music's starting to play. Turtle Boy. I want to thank Sean on the Gulf. I want to thank the Facebook pages. I want to thank Dixie Enormous from Twitter. I mean, you're incredible, Dixie Enormous. And I'll be done in a minute, please. The music's starting. It's getting loud. Anyone that voted for me, and if I missed you, I mean, my wardrobe assistant, I want to thank my wardrobe assistant. And please, if anything, have your pets spayed or neutered.
Oh my God.
Thank you. Good night.
JON, I love it. And also, we have our good friend Abby. I'm sorry, Abby, I don't have a soundboard, but here's a round of applause for me. And Abby, guys, was a last minute addition, so I also didn't prep a little intro video. But
oh, it's fine. I don't really have one.
I might be to blame on that one.
I'm just a nerd nobody.
I'll tell you what, we could definitely use your knowledge and know-how today. I mean, we've got some stuff to go over. So Abby, tell me a little bit. I mean, you did mention that you have that this sallyport video is a big part of how you got into Karen Reed, right?
Yeah. So my mom lives in Massachusetts, in Leominster, and she sent me this video of this crazy trial that was going on with Karen Reed. And she mentioned she's like, oh yeah, I saw this video. It looks edited. What do you think? And then I saw it and I was like, oh my God, this totally edited. So I don't really have a lot of social platforms, and I've never really been on Twitter before. So this was kind of my one Twitter experience. And the whole thing really fascinated me from start to beginning of just the different compression artifacts. I've worked in film production for over 20 years. Currently, I'm a creative director, but I've also done video engineering. So I worked at Avid Technologies, which is like a nonlinear editing software company. So I'm pretty well versed on, how, different codecs, wrappers, and flavors work in, harmony and different artifacts that can occur in different videos, and even just restoring corrupted videos in general. So I did see the video and I thought there was a lot of strange things going on. And that's kind of where my Twitter journey started.
And I love how you kind of put things in layman's terms for those of us still down here on Earth who when we hear the word wrapper, we think of Christmas gifts or we think of Tupac Shakur. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It's hard because it is very technical. So I always like to refer to wrappers as a file format. So there's a wrapper, and then the codec is basically like the flavor. So what flavor of codec that you're doing in a certain wrapper?
That technology. Remember the technology that they used at that police. That's 25-year-old technology.
It is, but this is the thing that I think everybody needs to understand too. It's that, Colleen Crawford, she does have a video, she also has a production background, which is a very rare thing. So there's video editors that can edit videos. And then there's a very rare few. So I actually know people that I used to work with at Avid that are video engineers that have that video engineering background to know what compression, different compression codecs and file types are. But it's very rare. So it's a very rare thing. But she also has a production background, and then she also has a video forensic background. So a lot of the things that you're seeing in the sallyport, it seems like it's super overcomplicated, but break it down. And I'm probably not the best at explaining it, but as somebody that, again, I have kind of that background as well, it's not as hard as it may seem, if that makes sense.
It does. It definitely makes sense. Like maybe someone like Trooper Paul.
Yeah, my brother owns a video production company, and so
yeah.
I know. I follow. I love reading your stuff. So
I feel like I overcomplicate it sometimes, but I think it's also good because you see a lot on Twitter, people throwing out theories or different tech scenarios and not being too specific about it. But when you're specific about it too, that also gives you an accountability. So if somebody that sees your post and it's like, actually, no, you're wrong, which was in the beginning, I had a couple of different theories how I thought it was done. And then it really, there was a lot of people that reached out to me and said, hey, I actually work with Equivision. This is how the platform works.
That's what I was going to ask you. How did you come about getting the unit?
So I actually bought the first thing is with cameras, it's always good to test the cameras because you could say that it's X camera and X camera, but all cameras function differently. So I did initially, even before I came on Twitter, because I had this theory in my head of how it was done. Yep. I went into the town of Canton records. I found
that's where you first hit me. When you did that, that's when I was like, oh my God, she's awesome.
Yeah. Yep. Well, because town records, if you're, and I used to work for a local cable access channel. I think it was like an internship or whatever in high school. And I used to have to go all these town events, and they always have the town budget records. So everything they purchase, including again, cameras or, servers, different user interfaces like Equivision, they have to put into, a budget. So I kind of went on the last camera that was purchased and specific to the police department, which was the Axis 3045V, which is actually an old camera. So and that's what you need to keep in mind too, is usually with towns, they'll stick with the same vendor because they have a vendor contract and that's how vendors work. So when I saw the Axis 3045V, and that was 2019, I'm like, at least this will probably be like the base model. They might have upgraded it since then, but at least this is like an older camera that's a good base model to test on. So I had to go to eBay, which by the way was such a pain to find because it's like outdated.
So old, yeah.
It's so old. And but Axis cameras really are the godfather of cameras. So their resolution's really good. The motion activation's very sensitive. So I did a lot of motion activation tests. I did just some tests on the lens of like what you could see from a focal distance. So from 5 feet to 20 feet, I have a pretty large apartment that's like, like 30 feet long. So I wanted to make sure I did like some tests. Okay, like can you see certain elements? Because in that sallyport, you didn't really see anything, which is not typical for that kind of camera.
Did you notice how same sallyport, different views of these cameras, total different lighting on these cameras? And that's why. So when I was coming on, and I'm like, I truth be told, I asked you without even getting permission from Britt, right? I did that on my own because I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong on any of my stuff. Just say no, you're wrong there, or you're right there. But so, like you said, testing out the different lights and the depths of everything, and how accurate it is in a 2-bay. It's 2.5 bay garage, let's say, sallyport.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been in film production for a long time, so actually I was more trained on film. So with film, you kind of really have to eyeball things of like certain distances for different lenses. And so when I saw the video, I did like rough measurements. I would say at most that garage from where the camera was is about 30 feet. I would say
I was going to say 25 feet. Usually bays are around 8 feet each. So there's just 16 adding up. Yep. You're right on.
So I did a grid. I did a grid out drawing of like what it should be. So with that certain model of camera, because it is a wide fish lens camera.
Yeah.
So between 0 to 15 feet, you should have an accurate. You should have an accurate face, which we didn't really see in the sallyport, which was kind of the problem.
Right.
And there's a lot of and I noticed like you always want to do a point of reference in the screen. So even when I watched that video, I saw my point of reference was a dummy. So if you saw that yellow dummy, there's a very odd, I would almost say like a mask that goes from, the top of the frame to almost the middle and then out. And then it has a feathering of it, which is not natural for, again, with this camera, even if you're working with the native software of Axis Companion, Axis Camera Station 5, you do have some blur mask. So if you have the Enterprise Edition, you can do that like in that camera interface and do kind of like what they call a privacy mask. So that is possible in that software, but I wouldn't, from what I've seen, I didn't test it on the Enterprise version.
Well, so let me ask you, from what you've seen, I was going by, let's just say, NBC 10's coverage, and we know that they had it up on a screen, so it's a projector of some sort in the courtroom.
Yes.
Could any of that affect any of your decisions on how, whether it's the lighting, whether it's the, or any aspects at all?
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's why I wanted to buy the camera too, because we can say from, just watching it, because you have to keep in mind a camera is filming the TV.
Right.
So that can have some, that can definitely have some impact on the quality. But you also can see in the frame, like the ghosting images. So I took that into account of like, maybe that could be a frame rate distortion. But the real thing too, which I think just to call it to Microdots did really, really well, is how when the video was uninverted, so it was unmirrored. So when it was like first presented in court, it looks like the left tail light was,
white.
Like there was that there wasn't a glow.
Right.
It was very matted and it was tracked. It looks like it was very tracked. And I do motion graphics. So that's another part of my job that I do. I do 3D animation, motion graphics. So that was a very obvious call out, which I think was really great for him to call out too, because I also saw that.
So Abby, for those of us down here on planet Earth, when something is tracked, what does that mean?
So basically that would be, let me see if I can, maybe I can pull it up while you kind of present your, what you have to say about some of the points that you have.
So Britt, if you go to either one of the second or the third video that I showed, this will be what she's talking about. This is the car entering from the left. No, not
Okay.
that one. The next
Nope.
one. And let's let that play for a minute.
Okay. Oh, we need to call a priest.
I know. I saw that. Now there's Berkey.
Someone disappeared.
Right. And he'll do the same thing.
Yep.
But then he
There he
pops up
goes.
like right there. I zoomed away for a second from the from what I was trying to catch anyways, but nothing changed.
Uh-huh.
He popped up right there with the other two guys.
He sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something paranormal, or it's been edited.
Yeah, but keep letting it play.
Okay. Oh,
It's coming, if you could just pause there for a moment.
Okay.
Up in the video.
So right now is when, and this is what really gets me, at least just not with the film part, but with Yuri's part. Larry's going to ask him which side the vehicle came on a flatbed truck on, and he gets it right. But then he says the vehicle comes in from the other door, almost as if to tell us on the right side of the screen. So what they want us to believe is the right side of the screen, if you've ever been to the Kent police station, is where like the entrance is and the main parking lot. And that the truck would have been coming straight down from the top of your screen to the bottom of the screen on your right and parked over there. And they want us to believe that the car went around behind the station and through the left. And that's literally what he's going to say right now.
why wouldn't it have just backed in if that's really what they did?
If the ramp truck, which Yuri says, came from the right, the vehicle should also come to the right, from the right, because on the left is just the back road that comes off the back side of the police station that goes out. It's the exit.
Exactly.
They should have brought it in that end from the right, but they don't.
All right.
Because in real life, what's on your left is where the ramp truck went, and it is where they brought the car in from.
Yep. Okay.
But if you listen to him, he's gonna say, ramp truck on the right, and then the car comes in from the left.
Okay.
And I can even say too, so I can just kind of show you. I mean, this is just like a very like broad example that I just did in like 2 seconds.
Yeah. You want to jump out of this and go to hers?
I could just go to After Effects. So this is kind of what it might look like when you're trying to track something. So if I wanted to turn, again, this is like a track mask. So if I wanted to, track this tail light, it would be super easy. So all I had to do is like kind of take a little rotor vector right
Britt's
here.
got to, hold on. Did you share? Wait, Britt's putting it up right now. That one?
Yep. I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a really sloppy way to do it. Can you see my screen okay? Because I'm just like,
sure can.
Yeah. So what you would really want to do, I mean, this obviously is pretty sloppy. Like you kind of want to make sure that all of your points of your mask are on the pixels that you want to track. And this is After Effects. So all you'd really have to do, it's super simple. You would just have to do track map. And then you're going to get like this little window right here. And again, this is not like super good because I just did this really fast. And you probably want to have a little bit more points around these pixels. But all you'd have to do is just press, like track forward. And what it's going to do is going to track the video forward based on these points. So at that point, I can duplicate the layer on this video. And then essentially, if I want to change this to purple, if I want to change it to green, I can 100% do that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
And this is a lot. This reminds me so much of Photoshop for videos.
It basically, so that's what it is. So I just kind of tried to, sorry, my computer's a little bit slow right now, but it's just tracking the mask of where it is. So when it drives in, that's why you see this. So if I duplicate this layer and let's just for fun. So we'll just do this because we have a little bit of a track mask. So we'll do We're going to do duplicate layer. So now that same layer is on this mask. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to here. I'm going to go to masks. I'm going to do an add. So it's just going to add the mask to it. And if I wanted to go here and let's just say we wanted to do a fill of, I mean, this is just really sloppy. So keep in mind, it wouldn't be like, there we go.
There you go.
And
Now
then
it's
do
red.
you have to do that frame by frame, or can you set it to where it will follow the part of the image?
No, so you can actually just do it what will follow. So that's the cool thing about After Effects. So let's just get out of this again. Let's go back. If we want to, all we have to really do is we just have to go in, if we zoom in into the points. And if I wanted to create a new mask, this will be my new mask, right? So I want to make sure I get these pixels right here. And the more solid the pixelation is, so, oh, actually, sorry, that's a shape layer. That wasn't right. But let's just go here.
And for folks at home, we're doing this on the fly. None of this was done.
Yeah,
no, none of this was
We're
done.
winging
But
it,
just
y'all.
say I wanted to, you know, take this right here. So if I wanted to go this, we'll just use the same mask because that's a little bit easier. If I want to do new mask, I would just, you know, kind of pick out the most in focus pixels, because that's what the algorithm in After Effects is going to do. It's going to track the most in focus. And
Also,
then basically,
now while
all you
you're
have to
doing
do
that,
is press
well,
start,
so-
and it will
so-
track it all the way.
While you're doing that, remember, people at home, this is the driver's side tail light that we're looking at right now.
Yes.
And
which is not the one in question.
correct. And everybody wants to argue. I mean, I don't want to say argue. And everybody wants to reiterate that the LED light on that is also red. Okay.
Of course
and
it
I
is.
want you
Well,
to
no, it's
remember
not.
this.
I'm sorry. It's white.
Well, if you Google that Lexus model, people are saying that the LED light in that Lexus model is red. Whether they're right or wrong, if they're going to say that that LED is red and we're seeing white on the driver's side unmarked taillight, so that means that their argument doesn't hold water, because they're trying to tell us, well, no, it should show red, and it's not. Well, we're looking at the non-damaged tail light that's showing white.
Exactly.
And I think that was intentional. And that's where I say it was intentional, because these cameras are even if you do, and let's just take into account the lighting scenario of the sallyport. It was actually pretty bright. And
looks like it.
we didn't, it wasn't like poor lighting, other than like the other one that we saw, which again, you can see there's definitely like a sharpened mask on that. I don't know.
That other one?
Yeah.
That other one, so when I recorded the other one, well, you know, I screen recorded, and then I went into, you know, my editing, and brightened it 100%, you know, I went 100% and brightened it and saved it. And then I went in again and brightened it another 100% just to get it to where it would look normal. I'm like, this is literally what, and it wasn't to hide the car. It was to hide all of the people around the outside edge of what we were looking at. Because, and I have that in there. I can only share 3 at a time, but after we get rid of one of them, I'll send one in. You'll see that there's way more people. And as he's trying to tell, as Gallagher's trying to say who's in the picture, I'm like, you're not talking about that person. You're not talking about, those are all different people poking their heads in.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
Abby,
so,
Sherry's
I mean,
asking, real quick. She's asking if they did the same thing with the color alteration for the One Meadows Ring camera as well. Would you know?
That one's a little bit harder because
of the snow.
Because of the snow. I mean, I don't know about that one. And it's hard to tell with the exteriors, you know, because like actually interior lighting is a lot easier to test. It's a lot easier to know. And there are reflections. So anything with white when you're in video production, white will bounce light. So it's kind of like a bounce board. If you ever seen on a production set where they hold up the big white, you know, white bounce board, they're bouncing the light because white will bounce light. So sometimes if the camera, depending on the angle, it will bounce the light right to the lens, which again is which would kind of, create, again, that color distortion, but it'll be like super bright.
Okay.
So that's
and then
really
you
where
don't need
you're
a
gonna have to
second
go to the
light.
colors.
And One Meadows when the Dighton cop arrived. Hang on one second.
Dighton Cup didn't go.
I don't think he went, Sherry, to
One Meadows is in Canton and the Dighton Cop is in Dighton. So
yeah, he
Oh,
went
they talk
to-
about when they were putting the car on the flatbed in Dighton. Maybe is that what they're talking about?
maybe when
Yeah.
yeah, that's possible.
That might be the question.
It's all
So-
good.
Because I have
It's all good, Sherry.
more questions. More questions for Abby.
Yeah.
So we go back to the video for a minute. We're gonna see.
Okay,
We're gonna see
the one
car
that we
coming
were
in.
playing.
Yeah, the first one. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead and play.
On the screen just for orientation purposes again. First of all, do you recognize what's depicted in this video?
Yes, I do.
So what do you recognize it to be?
That is the Sallyport two-bay garage at Canton Police Department with the antique Canton Cruiser on the
With the
bottom of the
antique
screen and the open spot for a vehicle in the middle of the screen with the four-wheel drive all-terrain vehicle at the top.
Now, as far as, again, for orientation purposes, the driveway that the jury just witnessed in the prior exhibit, is that to the left of the screen, the right of the screen, or something else?
The driveway is to the right of the screen.
And this vehicle, the defendant's vehicle is sort of taken into the garage from the opposite side, or to the left of the screen, is that correct?
Correct.
And Ms. Yeoman, if you could, please.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Thank you, Brandy, for your Venmo.
All right. So that one. So on that one, and then you see right here. Where's the role of the caution tape? They just got this big clump of caution
Yeah.
tape that they can pull around this thing, But
Yeah.
so that's
Did they
out. So you can,
reuse old caution tape, maybe, or?
you just when you're watching the video before the vehicle comes in, it just for a police department, it's really not the tidiest of sally ports. It's
No.
just saying,
It doesn't look like it.
Yeah.
It's a step
Now-
above my husband's garage.
So, Abby, at the very beginning, that system that you have, we saw someone walking in, almost slip, and they were going to go through that door, and then they were gone.
Yeah,
Now-
it's not natural.
Right. So, right, the beam me up Star Treks, and it happens at least 4 or 5 times throughout the videos. There's one with someone sweeping. There's that one. We just saw Berkey going halfway through the garage, and then he's gone for a minute, not a minute, for a second or two. Did yours act similar?
No, in fact, I could only replicate it once. And that was because my internet connection went kind of a kaput for like a
Oh.
little bit of like a millisecond. And I got a little bit of like that kind of pixelation that you see, which is pretty obvious. And that's really where I think it's interesting. So when you're looking at the Sallyport and core, you have to think, okay, like the camera is recording the screen. We might not be seeing what we call square pixelation. So have you ever heard of like Minecraft, like the video game for kids?
Oh,
So
yeah.
think of square pixelation. When something's really highly compressed, you're going to get those little square pixelations on the screen. And we didn't see that at all,
No.
which again is kind of indicative of when you see that really hard, when you see those ghosting images, you see that pixelation. And then when, you don't see that, you kind of see those very smooth edges on the Lexus. You see the very smooth edges on the cop car. So, and even just eyeballing the frame rate, I think that this video was shot at 15 frames per second, 100%. So it wouldn't be like a video surveillance system that was shot at like 1 frame per second or 10 frames per second. This was shot at 15. So I do think it was like at a higher frame rate than that. But what happens is that these cameras, they the what's the word that I want to use? They don't shoot like a what we call like an all eye. So all eye is like all interframes. These cameras shoot in a GOP, so group of pictures. So you have the iframe, which is basically like the main frame that the predictive frame goes off of. So predictive frames and bidirectional frames are motion frames, and they just kind of predict the motion. So if you think of a comet,
Oh,
and you have the
okay.
comet tail and it's going by, and then you kind of see these ghosting images after, that can occur when you change frame rates. So if this was shot at 15 frames per second, and I do believe some of the stuff that Microdots did, just pointing out, again, that left tail light shouldn't look like that. I think that was in a post-production program. So a lot of post-production programs, if you're sloppy, what can happen is you can put a 15 frame per second video in a 2997 frame sequence. And what will happen is when you encode it, it's going to add more frames. So when you're adding more frames, you're adding more predictive frames, because the inner frame is really kind of like that natural frame that you get. There's no movement. All the predictive and bidirectional frames reference the iframe. So that's where you kind of get that comet-like look.
Yeah.
So unless it's, and that's a huge
Tail.
indicator
Get that
to me, and in addition to the square pixelation of like why it's edited, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Real
Now-
quick, guys.
Yeah,
Dennis Sweeney, glad to have you
Hey,
here.
Dennis. Hey, Dennis. Dennis, man, gonna see him Thursday.
And then Dickie wants to know, Abby, hang on, let me go ahead and remove this from the screen. Dickie wants to know what metadata a proper extraction would contain from that system. We know they submitted crime scene photos with no metadata. Is it like the iPhone?
No, so this is actually, so they're using an Axis camera. So Axis cameras are compatible with, I like to call Equivision. So Equivision is basically like the DVR. So it's a digital video recording device. So what happens when the digital video recording device, you link up the Axis camera to this, you know, like the software, what we like to call the client manager, it records the video, and then it wraps it in its own proprietary, what's the word? I'm trying to explain this a better analogy, in its own file format. So a file format that Equivision uses is
each
NVDA.
system uses their own way to play it back.
Yeah, so that's kind of the, so when I talk about EVX and the EXE files, so the EXE file is basically what Equivision uses to package its recorded files. It will, you link the camera up, like, so if it's an Axis camera, you link it up to Equivision, it records its own file format, which is, again, like an EXE, and that is an H.264. So let's think of it like as a sandwich, right? So we have a BLT sandwich, and we have it in a plastic bag. And let's just think of the bacon as the video stream, or what we like to call like a codec. If you switch out the codec, it's fine. So you could, it's the codec, or the bacon is the H.264. And say we wanted to, you know, alter a file, we would have to switch out the H.264 out of the sandwich, because if we just want to replace it with like a chicken or something, it's going to wipe all that data. So that's what makes it really hard, because you can't play something. So if I wanted to change the whole sandwich, and, you know, including like the bacon, lettuce, and tomatoes, and I just want to make it a meatball sub, it's not going to play in Equivision. It can only play the EXE files with the EXV container. But you could theoretically still switch out the bacon, which is what I'm trying to do now with the video stream. So I could switch out the H.264 and not switch the metadata in the file. But the problem with Equivision, I guess, at the end of the day, is that if I have an AVI, or if I export out as MP4, it's not going to play in the Equivision media player, which is what we saw in court. So there's only two solutions to that. Either A, it was like a mock. So they took a screen recording of a screen when they were playing it back.
I think they did screen recording.
I think that's the most logical thing.
Because the easiest thing is you take a screen recording, and this is not, I didn't come up with this. I have somebody from Canton that came up with this, and we both agreed on it. you zoom in or crop 10% in, you now have lost all of the digital time, everything on the bottom, and then you put the new one across the bottom.
Hence
that's
the
it.
added timestamp.
You put the new timestamp. So you zoom in just enough to lose the old timestamp, and then you add your new time.
They were playing it, so you'd have a little bit of a player thing going on. So that's really where I'm trying to work out now. So there's two solutions, right? So when we go back to more of like a desktop recording, so you think of Loom. Everybody uses Loom. They record their desktop. Just think of that in a DVR of like they're playing the video in the Equivision media player. Because again, this media player will only play its specific proprietary file, which again, they don't have anymore. So they record that screen and then they play that in court and just kind of like do like almost like a mock. And there's a couple different ways you can do that. So you can either just make a video and kind of, you know, kind of like trick it a little bit, or you can repackage it in an EXE, which we kind of saw that with the Lally files. There's maybe like 10 seconds that you saw some of these EXE files down.
You had me pausing so many times at all those at that when they had that screen up, and I'm like, and I pause and I look through. I was trying to look for the dot,
Well, the interesting thing about that is that's why I kind of think almost so. I'm kind of on the fence now after seeing that, because I just recently, somebody gave a tip when I was on Oblivious Benson's channel. They're like, hey, did you see this part of the day 20 video? And I'm like, oh, I haven't seen it. And so when I saw it, so Equivision does have a few, so it will make an EXE file and then it will make a PostScript file. And these, I don't know if you looked at what I posted on Twitter, but they're very, there's different timestamps, right? So there's a video from the 28th, a video from the 29th, a video from the 30th, and a video from the 31st. And it's almost, and the naming conventions obviously aren't like back sallyport. They're very different, almost like names to it. So what I'm thinking is that maybe those were clips that were extracted and then were re-edited in an editing software program, repackaged. So when I talk about repackaging of like the BLT sandwich, right?
Yeah.
So you can't, so again, like the file format is an EXV. So you can't change that format because you'll lose all the metadata in that little, and we like to call those like little file containers. So we have the file container, which is the wrapper, and the flavor is the H.264. But what you can do, and I actually didn't think about doing this when I was testing it, because I honestly just tried to reverse engineer the file, which was not productive because I could not get past the hash values. Yeah. But what you can do is you can replace the stream. So I can replace that bacon or the flavor in the container. So that's what I've been trying to do all day, is just kind of tweak it so I don't lose the metadata, and I can still play it in Equivision, the Equivision media player. But this is the thing, and that's why the loss of file is, because even if I did that, so, and I actually tested it today, and I was actually very successful in doing it, which is like, go me. But it did not authenticate the file. So that's the thing. So you can still make it look like an Equivision file, but it won't authenticate it. So if they handed over these files that they had in court, which we did see, like those EXE files, if they try to authenticate those files 100% right off the bat, if they just did what I did, like it wouldn't be authenticated.
Get it right.
Yeah, especially
it wouldn't
like
be authenticated, and you could tell 100% that it was replaced. And so that's where I think it was a little tricky. But I didn't even think about doing that. I think I overcomplicated it. And I'm like, okay, I need to re-engineer the whole container, and I did re-engineer the wrapper and the flavor of the codec.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really where I was trying to get like a little mixed up on that, because I'm like, this is impossible. But I didn't just think about the actual flavor. So that H.264 of trying to replace that in the stream and still keep the metadata. So I was able to, kind of work it today somewhat successfully. I have to work on it a little bit more tomorrow, but it's not as hard as you would think. It's actually a pretty simple script prompt.
And if you have a couple people, all you need is like, let's just say 98% of the people at the station can't do what you just described. One or two could, or the Crawford.
I think Crawford could do it.
Yep,
100%. And that's where I say, when people are like, oh, they're not that smart. I mean, I checked out her LinkedIn. She has, she has a production background. It's not a super hard thing to do. And she probably even has more forensics training than I do. Because I've worked on more complex systems.
Berkey loved all the digital stuff. So
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
not, it sounds really complicated, but it's not. I mean, the Equivision player thing is a little bit more tricky. So I still have to sweeten that out a little bit because I don't want to say, oh, it's super possible and it not follow through. But I think there's either two theories: is that A, it's a screen recording if they're not that talented, because it does take a little bit of skill to do that, to replace the flavor in that sandwich, or I don't know. I'm trying to do analogies.
You're doing good. You're doing good.
But
do you think they brought the car in one time or two times?
Oh, two times. I think all those files right there say it all, because we have files from the 29th.
Yeah.
We have files from the 30th, files from the 31st.
I think I know the exact point. And so what I think happened was they brought it in, they took it out, they probably ran upstairs and looked, because you can look back at the video. I mean, at my work, we have the closed circuit that you can back up, and you can literally go almost frame by frame.
Yeah.
And they probably told, because there was two people standing in the garage. I'll tell you, if there was no one in the garage, they probably would have got away with it. But because there was two people in the garage, it's just like in a movie. Go back and stand where you were standing. Okay, they ran back, they stood where they were standing, and then they brought the car back in. The problem is they didn't stand exactly where they were standing the first time.
Well, and they cut on action too. So that's really where I think
yes, because one moved forward. One guy started moving forward too soon.
Yeah, and that's where you get that kind of apparition. So if you miss a few frames, it's those predictive frames. They're going to add frames. And that's where I think they didn't really do a good job with the frame compression. Because even when I tried to do with that camera, if there was like a loss in signal, but I mean, honestly, I rolled with like 10 frames per second, 15 frames per second, 5 frames per second. I have 3 cats. So, I mean, that motion activation, I even set perimeters like 5 feet. And it would go off.
Britt, if you go to the second video I sent you, you'll be able to see exactly what she's talking about.
This one right here?
I'm almost positive you're going to see them. I think this is the one
no, I think this is the one we were playing before.
No, let it go for a minute.
Oh, okay.
No, not that one.
That was it? Okay.
It would have been. You would have seen them standing off to the left, and then one moves forward, one moves. Actually, it's really only one moves forward. The other one, it's a quick cut of when he goes from where he was standing in the front to the back. No, it's not that one. Yeah. Let me see if I have that.
Okay. Nikki, thank you for busting a caps lock so that I can see your question a little more easily in the chat. So Nikki is asking about the apparitions. Is that just from deleting parts of the video?
Correct. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with the apparitions. So say I cut, I do like a cut, and there's like maybe just 3 frames, right? And that cut that I'm doing that are still left. If I'm going to be adding frames to that. So if I'm exporting, so the native format is 15 frames per second of the Access security camera. I'm exporting at 2997 frames per second. It's going to add frames to those 3 frames of a predictive. It's going to be like a ghost, like a comet tail, if that makes sense.
It does.
So that's why when a lot of people are like, oh, well, it could be this, like that. It really is what we call ghost frames in production. And I do think ghost frames will happen, and they don't actually natively happen if I brought this camera into Premiere, right? And I exported it at 15 frames per second, as long as I'm keeping the 15 frames per second and the same flavor of codec. Because every flavor, when I mean flavor like H.264, there's a couple like, like some of the newer HV, 6.5. There's a couple different flavors there's a lot of different flavors of different codecs of just how it compresses. But all of them have their own algorithm of how they compress GOP. So as long as I'm keeping an H.264 and I do 15 frames per second, it's not going to have that ghost apparition. Now, but if I change the frame rate and I change it out, then that's when it's going to happen.
Do you think this is
Brett,
beyond?
I just sent it to you in a text message.
In a text? Ooh,
yeah, it'll come through in a second. It's going through.
All right. Yeah, I haven't received it yet. So Abby, do you, or this is kind of for both of you, do you guys feel that this is beyond the capabilities of Nick Guarino? Or do you think maybe he'd be able to do this? Because I mean, obviously it wasn't a perfect job. This was pretty easy, even for an untrained eye to catch.
I don't know.
I
I can't answer that one. But that one,
I think that there's, well, I think a calling crowd, and actually when I went back into, if you look at day 20, if you look on the computer screen for some of the monitors, you'll see that there's like Photoshop and Premiere on the icons. So I think she's very capable of editing. I think she's very capable of After Effects. And I see After Effects in that motion tracking, because it is a pretty smooth motion tracking, which it typically occurs in After Effects. But the one thing about After Effects, even if you are using the same flavor of codec, it doesn't do very good frame handling with low frame rates. So if I have a 10 frame per second or if I have 15 frame per second, After Effects typically doesn't like it. It just like, it's like, I don't like you. And it will have like some ghost apparitions. So that is also why I think it was edited, because naturally the camera doesn't do that. It doesn't cut on that with motion activation. It doesn't have those ghost apparitions like that unless there's like a severe loss of connection. And even mine, I mean, my Wi-Fi thing went off and it just cut the video. Like it wouldn't, if there's a jump, like maybe a 2 or 3 second jump, you'll see it, or you'll like kind of like see the whole thing from start to finish, but it doesn't typically jump like that.
how about this? You only see those jumps in the sallyport, the 2 cameras in the sallyport, the one when they have when the car's coming in, and then you have it jump when they're looking at the taillight. And the taillight thing, when they're working on that, I mean, it's jumping minutes. They're cutting 30 seconds off here. I mean, literally, when you're watching it, you see where they've sliced. And you don't get it in any of the dash cam footage. You don't get it in the library footage. You don't get it in the temple footage. You don't get it in any of the other footage. The only footage that this is in the sallyport. You don't get it in the outside camera of the truck coming down, the ramp truck coming in, doesn't do it there either.
Yep.
Now here's the other thing.
And that's just poor editing, because I don't think that they knew. And this is like a production thing too.
Well,
and
I
you
didn't
have to
think
like
they get caught.
look at, if you look at Colleen Crawford's, I mean, this probably shouldn't say that, but like if you look at some of her experience, it's like, 20 years at this one position, right? So unless you do a lot of production, if you're working with natively, like sometimes you're working with 15 frames per second or 10 frames per second, you kind of know like this basic foundation of, you need to make sure that your sequence is the same frame rate as your native recording. And I think that that's where all this came in, is that's where you see it, is where you have these cuts. So that's why I think it wasn't an editor, because there's definitely frames being added. And I can see that just from me.
And when people are at the same job for 20 years and they're doing the same thing, you see the same tendencies. You see the way people like to do things, how they like to work with the same stuff, the same system. You don't see them jumping around from all different platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that you're not really natively working with that at all either. It's not like you're editing, cell phone video. I mean, maybe I don't know, maybe that's like incorrect. But I think when you get into a pattern of not really knowing those basic foundations of why you shouldn't do that, you get caught in doing it. Because I mean, sometimes I edit 15 frame per second videos with iPhones with influencers, and I never have that problem, because I know that just like little bit basic foundation principles. So you can edit that and you can still know the back end. So maybe she's really good at the back end, maybe she's really good at the metadata part of it. But if you don't do everything that's congruent, then you're going to have these little alterations and different elements of the video that just don't make sense.
I could have made a comment there, but I didn't.
Well, and it is alleged too that she sent some kind of nastygram of a text about Karen.
Oh, we lost.
Did we lose Abby?
Abby
Oh,
just.
shoot, it's my
It
camera.
must have been that
Oh.
comment. Must have been my
Oh
comment.
no, hold on.
It wasn't me.
Why did it just
I
go
didn't
off?
do
I
it.
think it's my internet.
It must have
Hold
been
on.
my comment. You left.
Oh,
All I was going to say
But-
is I'm really good at the back end too. No.
But no, it is alleged that Colleen sent that text saying that
Oh, my camera's
Karen's
off.
going. Oh, there she blows. All
Colleen
right.
said,
So,
what text?
she allegedly sent a text about Karen to, a friend or family member, just saying Karen Reed's going down.
Yeah.
So if
So
that's
do you have
true-
that? Do you have that quick little 10-second video there that I sent you? Right.
Oh, the one that you texted me. Let me
did.
check. There it is.
Sorry,
Found
Abby.
it.
Abby, by the way, I have ADHD. If you didn't notice.
Oh, I do too.
We all do.
I literally was.
And that's why I'm so hyper focused on things. That's how I caught. I'm like, and then what happens is once you see one, you want to find the rest of them.
All of them. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I even think, going back to your theory about how it was staged, like that one shot that I posted on Twitter. Why is there different sallyport files? And not just from the second that we saw, but there's a 28th, the 29th. We see the same pattern on the garage, and that's what kind of makes me think that it was edited out of sequence.
Right.
It's just, maybe they had a couple like test runs. I don't know, but there's a lot of things in that video that just don't really make sense. So that's kind of what I'm trying to
and
work
then
on.
the fact it's almost like a magician. If you have enough things to take your eyes off of what they want, it's look over here, don't look over there. You have a guy sweeping, you have someone doing but they do it in such a manner. It's like, that's not how it goes. All of a sudden, you have everybody in the station down there and like, okay, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. No. And, they're all shaking hands. It just totally, that you can tell that they know they're on camera.
Well, it's weird too, because I had that camera on for a week straight. Like a week straight, never had any of those ghosting. And I did it for like a very low frame rate, at like 5 frames per second. I did it at 10, 15. I did it at 29.97, and I never got those ghosting artifacts. And that's what it makes me think, is that this was literally shot at 15 frames per second. It was exported at 29.97 or higher frame rate, and that's why you kind of have that comet tail.
Right.
And at any time they just maybe miss 3 or 4 frames, and then once they miss those 3 or 4 frames, that's where you see like a little apparition, and then it goes away, because it's adding predictive frames to that last cut.
Yep. Actually, absolutely agree. Oh, here we go.
This video that you texted me, I have.
What?
I just emailed it to my on your Twitter. I can just share the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang tight.
All right. You liked it.
Share. Oh yeah, that okay. I know how it's labeled. So.
It's only like a couple seconds long. 23 seconds. It'll be my I'll have to put it on as my next post. So we're in agreement on the first part of the sallyport, in which they brought the vehicle in. The other thing that gets me is there should have been, so they have a camera that shows the truck coming down the road, yet they don't have a camera that shows them taking it off the ramp. Like they put the ramp truck in a place that the station doesn't. There, I just put it on Twitter. Right? There's got to be a camera that's watching the parking lot. That looks out at the parking lot.
You would think, yeah.
But you would think. So then you would think that it'll be my very first post that I did. Yep. It's that one right there.
All right.
Yep.
So
this is where I think they went from the first time to the second time, because if you watch the guy that's on the left, with the hood. Let's call it that, the hoodie. And there goes Berkey right there. The guy on the left, right there in the front.
Yeah.
Then becomes the guy in the back. All right. He stands still. But then next thing you know, he's standing still at the back. See, right there? Whereas the other guy right here that's now in the front, he moved forward.
Yeah, it's a bad cut. So that's kind of what I was talking about with the GOP. So there was a cut there, and that's where you have that artifact.
That's what they were told. Go back down and stand there. Right. So this is where at some point they made that cut right in that spot. And let's say that's Proctor on the left. Proctor stood still and then moved to the back, and you see him kind of shift to his left a little bit. But are we calling this guy in the black? Who's the guy in the black? Are we calling that Yuri? I don't know who this is in the front with the coat. Or is that Proctor? Is that Proctor in the black? And I don't know who that is in the hoodie.
I think that they said Proctor was in the hoodie.
Yeah, and hoodie guy kind of has the Proctor stance, at least to me.
So is that Yuri? Or is that someone else? But it's now the guy in the front. But that's where they went from the first time it came in to the second time they came in.
Yeah. And that's where I think that a lot of and just based on that file structure. So again, I kind of have to test that out still a little bit. And just being able to see. So I guess my major concern so we already proved they don't have the original file, right? But what they did show in court is it did look like it was a player. So I think the video was like kind of what we talked about. It was just a screen, like a desktop screenshot, something that you would normally do in Loom. Right. Or it was something of like what we talked about with the sandwich bag where, you have your wrapper and then you're replacing basically that flavor codec that would be like the bacon. You're just going to replace with chicken. So that would keep the file structure intact. Because what's going to happen, I believe, and maybe I'm going to be wrong, but the prosecution is probably going to come back and say, hey, well, this was played in Equivision. And they're going to get an expert to say, well, if it's not, an EXV, or if it's not an EXE and a proprietary type, it's not going to play in Equivision. So that's why I'm trying to prove like both methods of like, hey, it could be played in this or that. Because otherwise they're going to just say, oh, yeah, well, they're going to get somebody from Equivision saying, yeah, it's not possible. But I think I already got it to play a little bit today, and it is possible to replace that that flavor. So the H264, I mean, you have to kind of do some like little code into some of the into a player to replace that file to make sure that metadata is intact. But I think that's also possible. So I think if we do this, so if we do again, like prove that it can be played in Equivision, and then it also, I honestly go with you. I think it's literally a glorified desk screenshot, to be honest. It's like the easiest explanation is always usually the right one.
What's the easiest way when you're in a rush to get it done? That's how I'm thinking.
Because they were already mid trial when.
But proving it both ways will be good because they're going to probably try to argue that.
Yeah.
Barry would like to know, Abby, if you would be the one to come get on the stand and say,
God,
this
if I don't
fake.
confuse the shit out of the jury, maybe. But I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm here making analogies about sandwiches, trying to make it easy,
Well, Julie Nagel's already up there talking about sandwiches. So the seal's
Trooper
broken.
Paul. Hey, Trooper Paul said that Trooper Paul said that the crime scene spoke to him. So if that works, obviously yours.
Think of it as a BLT sandwich. Like I don't know. It's just very.
It's 11 o'clock. The jury's already hungry, and you're talking about BLT sandwiches, and that's all they can think of is 15 minutes. We're out of here for lunch.
We need to break early.
I'm just thinking of like a Ziploc bag because the EXE is a Ziploc bag. The sandwich is another container, and then you have the bacon. That's the flavors. You have the codec, the wrapper, and the EXE wrapper.
So you have that, and then Britt, if we move it along, same thing so now it would be the third one.
So
the other one I put up.
Okay.
The longer of the two. One's only a couple seconds. The other one's the longer.
This guy.
Yeah.
Right.
So in this one, this was me brightening up this 200%. This isn't what it looked like in court. So you didn't see the guy down here at the bottom, the bald head moving away. Yeah.
It's great
At some
work.
points during the execution of this search warrant.
Guys, please leave your touch DNA evidence on that like button and the subscribe button.
At some points during the execution of this search warrant.
And this is why I thought that was Kevin Al, because if you look at his shirt, you'll see the stripes on the shirt. It's not just a regular patrolman.
Oh, okay.
Kevin, how can we make this go away, Albert?
Right.
All right, I'm going to play it again from the
Yeah.
top. Oh, what have I done? Oh, no, it's still going.
But you see how dark that is? For that to be a security camera in a
It's
police
not.
department,
It's and you see the sharpening of it too. So you can tell the sharpening by like even when it was played in court, there's like that little rainbow streak. That's a that's a sharpening tool. It definitely has
100%.
tool marks on it.
Brandy says, I believe Kevin's more involved than what's already been said. Brandy, that is an excellent point. And this goes back to why the hell Proctor brought the SUV to Canton PD after they already had recused themselves. Right? They were turning all this over to the Massachusetts State Police. And from where the vehicle was picked up, there were 2 other police departments with sallyports that were under Proctor's jurisdiction as an MSP trooper. Or, I'm sorry, as a statey. I just learned that y'all call them staties.
Britt, I apologize.
There were
Britt,
several other places he could have taken that.
Play the other one I shared to you, because it'll show you a side-by-side comparison of what we saw.
I believe if
Okay.
this is
On the
Trooper
right, what
Proctor,
you see in
this is
court.
me with the gray dress shirt walking in. That's me right there.
Yeah.
And that's Trooper Proctor. I believe the photographer or another criminologist is here. I don't know what their title is.
Now, at some points during the execution of this search warrant, what, if any, issues did you become aware of with regard to the criminal?
They were having trouble. They were trying to remove the housing.
Now, did you see the guy just popped into the screen? So if you back it up like an inch or so.
I'm going to go back about 5 seconds so we can
Now,
see that again,
look at
guys.
the top of the screen. Look at the guys that are standing at the top by the old police car. How many guys do you see on the right, on the left screen? You see 2 of them, right? And when you hit play, and now see, he's walking off screen at the bottom. All of a sudden you hit play, a third one will appear at the top.
They were having trouble. They were trying to remove
There he
the
is.
housing
See?
to the tail light, passenger side tail light, and they were having difficulty removing
And then he
it.
walks back. And then that guy moves over. So now you got 4 guys up the top. So you got 4 guys up the top. You have what he's saying, putting on his gloves, his warmlets. Down here, and I'm looking at the left. I'm looking at the one I brightened. You have the lady with her clipboard. And a second ago, you had someone way off to the left. And then you'll see Berkey come in too. So you have all these people in the station, but he only says 2 or 3 people that he can recognize. Actually,
Yeah,
you have a 4th. You have a 4th. You have the criminologist that he says that he doesn't know what his name is, right there next to like my window on the left, left side of the screen there.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to go back another couple seconds so we can see
But
one more time.
but can you see what? So on the right, this is what they're showing the jury.
I know. And it's like the jury's probably going to ask that the Canton PD calls an exorcist.
And on the left, you can see the red taillight. And I ended up zooming all the way down onto that taillight. And you can see a lot of red lens on that if you zoom in just on that taillight.
Issues did you become aware of with regard to the criminal?
ahead.
Oh, I was just
Here you
gonna
go,
say
Abby.
too, and the also thing to keep in mind with security cameras is they have a very wide lens and a very like fast aperture. So like their aperture is about like, like 1.5. So they're very wide open lenses. So if you think of an aperture, and I'll just do like kind of like a circle. So like it's, you say your aperture is at 1.5, it's like fully open, right? And then the lower you go down, it could be like, an f.4, 5.6, 7, 9, 11, and then it's like very like closed. But these lenses really don't have that. So you actually have to manually adjust the lens to record very like dark like that because they're very wide open. So that's another key point in the sallyport and doing low lighting and higher light testing is that you keep in mind that they're fixed aperture. So they're fixed. That means that they don't have I can't just adjust the aperture on one of these cameras to like a 1.5 to a 7.11. I have to adjust the exposure. So this is like an intentional thing. So why would you have a camera that records like this and intentionally lower the exposure? Because that aperture doesn't change. It's a fixed aperture.
It's almost like frightening.
So in other words, let's just say a cruiser pulled into the bay with a criminal in the back seat. Not a criminal or someone that they arrested that's in the back of the car that they want to take out of that car and bring in and put them in a cell. You mean to tell me that that's the footage that they're happy to have to make sure that this, God forbid, something happens between that prisoner and one of their officers, and they need to go back and look at that to see what happened?
Yeah,
that's what
the wrongdoing or something.
They're okay with.
I doubt that this was like this. This is why it's at an A. You see a sharpening mask on it, and then also you see like this, the darkness of it. And we know that sallyport garage is very well lit, and that aperture is a fixed high. I would say. I mean, I guess it's the wrong terminology, but I would say a low aperture. So usually in film, it's reversed. So we say high aperture, which is like a 1.5, which means it's opened up all the way. But if we're putting it in like simple terms, like a lower aperture is a 1.5. So it means the lens is like all the way open. So it's fixed. So I can't just, kind of turn the lens, the aperture lens and just turn it down to a 4.5. Like it's fixed. So there was a lot of well lit it was very well lit. So in that retrospect, having that dark of an image in a well lit garage like that with a fixed aperture that's all the way open, it doesn't make sense. It's unless you literally knock it down.
Somebody made the conscious effort to do that.
Yeah, I agree.
So this was it would take in less light, right? Is that what you're saying? Like
it was taken with the same amount of light. So that's kind of the interesting thing. So these lenses are fixed. So
it's not
the aperture
camera.
to the sensor. Yeah. So
it's after the fact.
I think this was after the fact. So I think this was intentionally darkened because again, the sallyport that we saw is in the same lighting as this camera. Even if this camera was analog, it's still like those security cameras have very wide apertures. So we like to call them high or low, however you want to say, like a 1.5 or like a 2.5. Usually that's like kind of like their fixed focal, like their fixed focal aperture. So if it should look similar. Maybe if it was analog, it would look a little bit darker, or it could even look a little bit lighter. But
here's another thing that
exposure
proves that that was well lit. If you look at the roof of Karen's vehicle, you can see how shiny the light is on the roof of her vehicle.
Big
and that's how you can also tell the sharpening and like the lowering of the lighting, the highlights.
Exactly. So, and mind you,
right on the money.
That's the picture on the left that you're looking at is 200%. This is the one I said, I went in and I brightened it so I screen recorded, I brightened it 100%, then went back out and did it again and brightened it another 100% just to get it to that point.
Yeah.
And
There
then
was
when
a
you look
curve
at the
on
roof of
there.
her car, you know that there's ample lighting in there.
Abby, what do you mean by a curve?
So I think too, they put a curve. So that looks like a post-production curve. So in video, there's RGB. And if I take a video and I just take like a little curve on an RGB, so maybe I can just show you. That might be easier. Hold on, let me just go back in. So for example, if let me just share my screen with you. That might be, I'm always more of a demonstration person because I try to explain it and then I start stuttering because I'm trying to put it in the right words. It's always easier just to show.
Perfect. Idiot like me can follow you. I think anyone can.
Hopefully everybody else can. I'm not a professional on air talent, so it is what it is.
Neither am I.
Yeah, so if we just go into here, so what I'm talking about in terms of a curve is, so if we want to do, like, for example,
all right, okay.
A curve.
Sorry, I'm working with a PC laptop on this whole thing.
How do you lose the chat on the other side? How do you lose the chat on this and make this bigger?
Do you see my screen at all? Oh, you do see my screen. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to. I'll make it a little bit larger.
Is everybody following along at home?
Here, I'll get rid of our faces too, so everyone can see a little better.
Let me just put it to fit in screen. So this is what we call an RGB curve, and this is just like a simple one. But we could even go like this. So you see how like we have these highlights right here, and this is what we would call like an RGB curve. And you're basically taking, so this is like a, for example, like if I just wanted to affect the red, I could go like this down. But when you take that whole RGB, so this is basically all the RGB, so it's red, green, and blue.
Red, green,
and if I adjust
blue
this,
for you that are at home.
Yeah, so that's where you would get this, something like this is kind of what we're seeing.
Right.
Does that make sense? And
Detective
sometimes
Mullins
I can,
is
like make like these yellows and these greens that you see in the sallyport. We saw a lot of oranges and reds, so that lighting was very orange and red lighting. So when you're doing a curve and you're trying to push it down, you can get these color artifacts. Does that make sense?
Yes.
This the more I think of it now, the more I think somebody. I don't think this was done by CPD. I think this was done after the fact.
Yeah, I think this was done. I think this was done by, Colleen Crawford. She literally is skilled and even in her LinkedIn, she's skilled in Adobe Suites. And if you looked at the trial footage and the monitor, so when they clicked off and on the videos, you can see Premiere and you can also see Photoshop, like in the icons, like right below. So I'm just saying it's very possible that somebody that knew video could do this. Like that's what it looks like to me. Somebody that's skilled in After Effects, or somebody that's skilled in.
I got a question for you on that.
Yeah.
Could they have? How could they have made it so that it went back to? So when you're looking, so people like us, when we're looking at the screen during the trial, it show it from a different file and not from what we saw.
And that's where it goes back to so what we saw, it looked like an Equivision file, right?
Right.
So that's when I talk about it could have been a mocked screen recording. So if I opened up Equivision and I just took, something like a Loom video, or there's a little snippet tool on Windows where you can record your screen. They record it. It kind of goes back to your theory, what we said in the beginning, where they kind of snip out the time code. We kind of get it to look like it's playing in a player that it's not being played in, which is theory 1. And that can be done a couple different ways. And then theory 2 is basically doing what I said is, kind of, if we think about it this way, they go into Equivision and let's just do folder A and folder B. So we export the Equivision file, so this whole file of how, like, all the clips, we put it into folder B, and then in folder A, and then in folder B, we're going to export out, because in Equivision you can also export out an AVI or an MP4. We export out an MP4 version of that same file, right? So we have the original file that's in an EXE and an EXE, which is kind of like those little wrappers in the container file. And then we edit this file, and then we replace the edited file. So we make this an H.264, and we replace the bacon in the sandwich. And then it will play in Equivision, but it won't authenticate it. So in Equivision, you can literally go file authenticate, and it will authenticate the file, because Equivision theoretically can only play their own files. But if you replace the flavor of the file and you still keep the container, so the file format intact, you could trick the program and have it play that way too. So it could either be a screenshot, or they could have actually played it in Equivision, but just basically replaced the flavor and kept the wrapper intact.
Okay. Z, this is a really good
make
thought. Absolutely, it does, Abby. So Z says if the defense team can subpoena Canton PD Sallyport video from other car confiscations, we couldn't get one from around the same time, Z, because they have a 30-day overwriting automatic, remember, unless they kept a different one from around the same time. But yes, that's a really good thought, that maybe we could do a side-by-side comparison with other car confiscations, but you won't get it from 2022 unless they manually saved it.
Which they did save it. They did manually save it, because we know this from
Exactly. Here it comes.
Yeah, we know that they saved it, because even the thing I posted on Twitter today, they had, and this is the funny thing, is they said that when they played it, it was a disc. It wasn't a disc. You can see on the side of the screen when they pull up, well, after the video played, you can see on the side of the screen that it was actually a hard drive. So they did factually save it. It was saved, and it was saved in an Equivision format. So whether that was the format, which I don't think that was given to the defense, because even their experts said it wasn't in a proprietary format. So we already talked about what a proprietary format for Equivision is, which is the EXE and EXE file format. So they didn't get that version, but they could have still gotten an AVI, because Equivision will export out an AVI and it will export out an MP4. So I think that's what the defense got. I think that they do have the file somewhere. They don't want to give it over, because if they give out the file they played in court, I can guarantee you that it will not be authenticated. Because even if they did the replacement, it won't be authenticated in Equivision, and it won't be. And even if they did the screen recording video, that can't be authenticated either. So I think that's where we're really at with that part. So if we break down,
and you also have to remember when Proctor was on the stand, and they asked him if he had seen a video, and he said, I think one was given to me. Well, Helena had given Tully a USB file that Proctor ended up watching in the middle of the trial before he was to testify. So if it overwrites itself every 30 days, why is Helena holding a USB file for a year?
And they're holding the EXE files. So we saw in court when it was pulled up, which again goes back to the earlier Twitter post when I showed all the files that were in that folder. Those are EXE files. So again, those are either replaced files where we replace the flavor of the codec, or they're literally just screen recordings that are again made into an EXE with a player, which is basically like a screen recording. So that's where they can't give either of those, because they're not going to be authenticated. And it's worse if they try to pass it off as an Equivision file when it wasn't. So I actually think they gave them, like an AVI of like maybe the edited file, and then just said, hey, like this is what you get. I don't think they would have given them the EXE. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. What do you think?
So remember now, if you back up before the trial, Proctor doesn't go to the library director. Proctor goes to the IT guy. The IT guy shares the file, which gives him a link, right? Gives him a share link. That was their end around the library for a couple reasons. So basically, instead of going to the library, they went to the IT guy. We saw that in court when they hand the IT guy a disc and he looks at it and he's like, this isn't my disc. Because he knows he didn't burn anything onto a disc.
He didn't burn anything onto a disc.
Right. And that's why they had to have a sidebar. And I think the sidebar was basically, and this is just me speculating, is basically them saying, Your Honor, it's really his information, but we needed to put it on a disc to be able to play it here in court. But it's, the defense has the same information as we, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But they allowed it to go on.
Yeah, and I think that's the major problem of it.
Right. But I think that's what happened.
What else tells me what I need to know is that the access logs were gone too. When
I can actually explain the access logs too.
Oh, yep, go ahead. I love this.
So anything that you do in the access in Equivision, in the Equivision Client Manager, which is kind of the client manager software, that's separate from the media player. It's the same, it's obviously like the same software company. But anything that you do in that is going to take a log. So if I delete something, it's going to show, Abby deleted X, right? So, but there's a way to get around it.
And it'll give a time for that too, right?
Yeah.
It'll be like Abby deleted X this day.
Correct. Samina Oblivious Benson talked about this 2 days ago, but there's a way around that. So if you go into the program files, you can see the access log. So what you would really have to do is you would have to exit out of the program, make sure the program is not currently running, go into the access log on what I like to call the root level, and then delete the logs on the root level, turn the program back on, boom, there's no record. Easy wipe. I used to do that at Avid all the time. Like when I worked there, we would delete, just because if we had a corrupted file, we would delete the logs on it just to make sure, everything was in sync when we tried to start the program back up. So that's just like a basic troubleshooting thing.
Okay, man.
Hey, Brett, how am I doing? Did I get a guest or what? I mean, I haven't had.
You are doing it. Hey.
This is
awesome.
awesome.
So I don't suck. I'm really bad on air. So.
No, I haven't had to do any heavy lifting at all.
JC is going to be my new manager. That's what's up. Dickie wants to know, right? Abby, would you know if that DVR system or whatever is still getting firmware updates or orphaned at some point?
It's probably still getting firmware updates. So it does. I mean, there is a couple different updates, which I'm also going through to kind of prove my player theory too, because I'm trying to also prove, hey, I can try to play this file in the e-player, which is like the Equivision media player. But also one of the things that I noticed with at least the media player itself is that anytime we saw it, we didn't get like the load screen, which I think is a little weird. It didn't have the load screen. Yeah. It didn't have what you would typically do.
It started right up. And yeah.
It didn't. So I actually think if it was a screenshot, it was a standalone player, which you can actually put. So if I wanted to create like a MP4 and then I wanted to embed a player within it, I can actually create an exe file with an MP4 and it would be like an auto loop player. So it would just kind of look like it. So, and that Equivision player doesn't actually look like what it looks like on my end. So I'm actually going through the updates. So there are updates that constantly go through. You can actually set it to auto update, or I never do that with software. I always just make the exemption of do not update until I tell you to update it.
Yeah.
But
me too.
So generally it's on auto update, I guess is the easier answer to the question.
I got another question.
In law enforcement, would that be typical for them to not do the auto updates though?
I don't think so. I think that's just more of a production thing. I think they should do it because it's, it leaves you up to hacking. So somebody can hack your servers if you don't update something, like on a constant basis, especially with that, because they are network IP cameras. They do have networking within the building.
And I would have a feeling that any other camera in town would be on the same. It's going to be the same system pretty much.
It is.
Yeah.
That's what I do think it's all in the same system.
Yeah.
And it's all easily accessed, which is another reason why I find it very hard to believe that they had only a couple drives hooked up to, because it could be a standalone system, but generally these devices like the DVRs are set up to, what we call like a shared storage, so like network storage. So you can, read and write on multiple drives that are on a network storage device that are, again, connected kind of like by a whole ecosystem. So I find it very hard to
Whether
believe
it
that
be
they
the
would have
fire
backup.
department, the police department, the library, town hall, whatever,
Yes.
whatever buildings that they have, all go. Yep.
Yeah, and the fact that they said based on the drive space, I find that very hard to believe. And let's just be honest, like the sallyport is, again, transferring prisoners over. Maybe from time to time they get, they have to collect evidence in them. I find it very hard to believe that it would be a standalone system with maybe, like a few servers connected with it. I've never heard of such a thing in a police department. I mean, not that I do that, because again, I'm more in production, so I do ads, but I've also done like, TV, video, you name video, I've done it. But in general, it's just not storage sufficient, like to have it on 30 days. And honestly, I don't believe it was on 30 days, because the files that you saw on
It is now.
on that one. Well, look at the tweet that I put up. So if you look at the tweet and the the modification dates. So even when you go on there, you see like January 29th is one of the videos, but it was, basically put on this drive in April. So, so that's 4 months. It's way over 30 days. So how did it get on there? If this was the protocol for this at the beginning of time, that's basically where I'm saying it just doesn't make sense. It's all a bunch of cat poop,
Now, when you got the system in the camera, did you experiment with different lightings in whatever room you set the camera up? Did you have a bright room, a dim room to see? Excuse me, how that recorded on your recorder?
Yeah, so I did a brighter light test. So I have a window right behind here. It's so I left this window open, and then I did, I had a few lights, just natural lighting, that kind of, and they're pretty bright. So I did do a test from where the camera was. So it's pretty bright lighting, and you still could get a pretty good picture. Actually, I can pull it up after I'm done explaining it, but you could actually see a pretty good picture with that. I mean, it was still, you kind of have the light going towards the camera. So that it wasn't as good, but actually it was almost even better in darker lighting, to be honest.
Now, did you put the camera up high looking down on your subjects?
I did, yes.
Okay. Yep. Just making sure you simulated.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I actually tried to put it, I measured, I tried to estimate, and there was one of the followers that followed me from the beginning. They did some rough estimations, and they had a video of somebody going actually into the sallyport and looking at how high it was up. So I took a tape
measure how good they are on the screen.
Yeah, I think it's about 9 feet up. Like, I'm gonna try to. I live in like an old loft building, so it's like an old bra factory. So I have very high ceilings, and I tried to make sure that the camera was at least like, I think I did.
What kind of
a
factory?
little bit higher. Huh?
A what factory?
It used to be an old bra factory. Used to make like bras and stuff. I mean, it's really cool though. It's all brick.
Bra factory.
Yeah, it's a bra factory.
The Sear factory.
It's the
bra and
perfect
underwear, I
apartment
think.
For your Christmas tree that you posted. Like,
oh yeah, so that was my Christmas tree post.
I loved the photos that you did, because it looked great in that apartment.
It's it gets like in the middle of it gets a little dimmer, just because the ceilings are so high. So you kind of have to put a lot of lighting. So I do have like a lot of like some string lights and everything, which I think was actually a good test too. So in the lower dim lighting, if you think about a car light, it's going to have a flicker, right? And what we saw at sallyport, there's no flicker. So I also tested just some string lights that I have that would put that that flicker where you would see, and you do see a flicker. You do see, like that kind of those artifacts. So
yeah,
that's where when we see the car come in and it's like that white matte, that's not natural. And definitely not with the camera that I got. I did not see like any of. I couldn't even replicate the sallyport if I tried with that camera, to be totally honest.
So,
tried my best.
All right, I have one more for you. Do you see what I see? When you look at this, now this was that same camera zoomed in. I tried to zoom in all the way onto the taillight. Do
Okay.
you see as much of that taillight as I do, like all that red, compared to what they said after the fact? It looks like in the picture that pops up. Like, do you see all that red?
I mean, I see the red.
Yeah.
I think that looks like there was, again, like that RGB curve where
Mm-hmm.
you can curve that out in a post editing system. Because you could do that. I mean, honestly, like
See, to
you're
me,
gonna
that
have a
looks like
little bit
that's
of
the
that lighting.
taillight. To me, that looked like that's the majority of the taillight, with just where the white is a little bit off, I'm missing. And then when that picture pops up, you're like, there's no way there's too much red in that taillight right there. There's way too much red. You can almost see the line about 2 inches to the right, but the straight down line of the housing.
Well, and you look at, I actually think that's a reflection. I think the whole taillight is red, and I think that's a reflection from above. So
Yeah.
there's a light
'cause
above the car.
It's got those big
And
bar
that's what
lights,
it-
the fluorescent. Yeah.
Yeah,
Which,
so
remember,
it's
when we were
like
looking at the hood of the car, you saw the shine.
Mhm.
Yeah, so if you
Yeah.
think about it this way, so the car is under here, and those, like that Sallyport has really bright lights. So we have like those
course it does.
straight lights above. So I think the car was here, and that's where you get like the light reflection onto that, like the metal, which is going to reflect up. So that's where you have to think about reflections too. So that taillight, where the taillight is going to have that reflection, because it's, obviously it's like this is the light here, but that, below the taillight where, you have the bottom where the hood, like where the basically like where the latch is, and the
Mhm.
top, you're gonna get a lot of shine. And so I think that's what it is. I actually think that there's not. I think that whole taillight is red, to be honest.
Yeah,
It doesn't kind
absolutely.
of go with that natural curvature that would have come on
Yeah, the
the
curvature of the
outer.
car.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I just don't see what we saw in the video that was playing versus the still that I popped up to say that's not the, well, you're not seeing the same. I mean, that's the Sallyport
Mhm.
camera, albeit once again I had to brighten that 200% just to get it to
Yeah.
hit.
And I've never seen an analog camera or a security camera or any. I mean, you'd have to be really intentional to do that, because these lenses, I mean, you'd have to, even if the default settings, so the default settings are going to just be like the default from the manufacturer. You would literally intentionally have to go in there, like lower the exposure, because again, these are fixed lenses, so they're wide open. The light's going to come through the lens. It's not like they're fixed, or they're variable apertures, so you can't just turn that aperture down. It's not going to bring in as much light. They're fixed, so you'd literally have to go in, cut the exposure down, or I mean, was it like that all the time? I don't think so. I think that would just be really stupid. Why would you install a camera like that? And
Exactly.
have
Now,
it
mind
like-
you, the first footage we watched, I didn't do anything other than zoom. What you see is what we all saw. And then you have that camera, and those aren't the only two cameras in the Sallyport. There's no way that there's two. There's other cameras, but I know that during the proceedings, they said that there was one that when they were given, there was nothing but snow. Everything was missing, or it was snow, or
everything is missing in Canton, apparently.
Yeah.
it was just unusable.
Which, by the way,
There was nothing
is not how cameras work. You know what
Right.
I mean? Like that's the crazy thing, is they claim, oh, this footage is missing, that footage is missing. Then we go on the Sallyport, oh, it's motion activation. By the way, my cats, I set a motion perimeter for my stairs, like, which is literally 5 feet from the camera. That thing would go off 15 feet back. Like, and I
Mine
have
catches
small
the wind
animals.
blowing.
Yeah, I mean, small animals will set that off, and they don't stop recording until literally they clear even past the motion activation perimeter.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm saying it's all.
The one at my work will give you a little bell on the screen up in the top. Like, so if we have like 9 cameras outside, and if anything moves, a little alert will be up in the top corner of the screen to let you know there's movement in one of the cameras, and you can just, you can watch, like, kind of like we're watching on the screen right now. There's, we have, Brit's screen, my screen, Abby's screen, but the bell will go off on whichever screen there's movement, like literally the second it sees movement.
Yep.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
Nikki's asking Abby if you were able to see what Proctor might have been doing in that portion that's in question, where it looks like he's maybe lifting his arm back to possibly strike it.
Yeah, I couldn't. It's hard to tell because it's so blurry. Which again, I actually think that the blur in the sallyport was intentional, and I can actually show you.
But
Okay.
while she's grabbing that, yes, I did do that song for Boston Brandy.
Oh, that was
here, let me see
that
what
was
you
your
did, 'cause
song.
I want to see what you did before I do that.
What's that?
You were able to zoom in and see what he was doing?
No. Sorry, there was a question on the screen. I was answering the
We
question.
were
No, all I could see.
John made a song.
The only thing when I zoomed in, the only thing I see, so he had like some sort of like a zipper file kind of attaché case, let's say. And he had that before he went around the back, and then he went around the back. But once again, there's other videos. There's like 4 or 5 people back there. And sometimes I don't just watch behind. I watch the door to see if anyone was coming and going from the door.
Yeah.
Because you might not be able to see them, but you see the door opening and closing. So because it's a large vehicle. So some of the shorter guys, sorry guys, the shorter guys made it in and out the door. But you see the door open and closing. The door doesn't just open and close on its own without somebody coming and going.
Right.
Right. So I know there was more people back there than just Proctor and Yuri and Berkey. And mind you, Tully was there. Tully was at the station all day.
Yeah, so let me just show you even so when I was talking earlier about kind of like that Minecraft pixelation, and the weird thing about the sallyport is if it was a very compressed file and really poor quality, which they're claiming, you would see that pixelation. And we even saw that with some of those artifacts where we did see actually that real, Minecraft pixelation. But for the most part, we just saw blur, which is not natural for a high compressed file. You would see that pixelation. So this is why I think they did it in post. So just to go back, I'll just share my screen.
Here you go. Grab her screen. Great.
When it loads.
I'll just go like demo mode. When I do these demos, I'll probably post more on my YouTube. I'll probably be more
And Abby, just so that everybody can know where to find you, and I'll type it into the chat. What's the name of your YouTube channel so people can pull it up?
It's CT Video Jesus.
Video Jesus.
Video Jesus was taken, so I had to go with CT.
CT Video Jesus.
I always make jokes about cat turds, so I thought that CT was a good abbreviation.
In a world.
So if you see, did you put my screen yet? Yeah.
Yeah, we're watching your screen.
Oh, sorry. Okay, cool.
Putting all these circles around the car.
Yeah, so if you pull up this is After Effects. So what you can do, just to
wait a minute, hold on. Brett, could you make that the full screen and just I know it's going to be tough for people to lose my image, but go ahead. Bring that up.
I know. We'll miss you.
All right, go ahead. Take it.
I'll see if I can fit this in.
All right, good.
So say we just wanted to do a simple blur mask, and this is just very basic stuff that you can do in After Effects, right? So if I just wanted this to be super blurry, I could literally just go over here. Let's make this, connect that blur mask. And then we can just go over here, put Gaussian blur. Boom. And now it's blurry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at the dummy, so if you look at the dummy in the original sallyport, you can kind of see where there's this linear mask that's very feathered. So if we wanted to do, again, if we were doing this in post-production, we could even take that mask so a little bit, so you kind of have a little bit of an edge feather, and then we can feather it down. So it's basically, think of After Effects as kind of Photoshop for video.
Right.
And then if people are walking in and out of this frame, so now we have this, you know, look, this guy's a little bit blurry down here. It's a little bit blurrier than the top. And that's where you kind of see that artifact. And if you zoom in at the dummy in that footage, you can kind of see where the dummy is really in focus at some points. And then sometimes it's not. I mean, it's the middle part's in focus, but the top and the bottom like are very out of focus, which is very unnatural for that camera. Again, because that dummy is like a good reference point. It's about 10 feet away, maybe even closer than that, maybe like 8 feet away. So theoretically, that should all be in focus. Does that make sense?
So
yes.
Either all of it or none of it.
Britt, what I did is I just sent back the original. So if you want to put the original up, she can explain it with her. She can't move her mouse around, but you can
laser pointer and pointed at two different individuals. The person toward the back, and you identified him as Mr. Proctor.
She can explain it just like that. Go ahead. Now that's
okay,
the
and
original.
I'm going to turn the volume down on the video so
there you go.
Hear her.
Yep. Abby, take it away. No.
Oh.
Which one was that?
Well, if it's a little bit bigger, I can show. Let me see if I think I have this on. Actually, no, I have a Twitter post for this actually that I showed the dummy for the reference point. Sorry, it was like
so that vehicle coming in, and I get it. Sometimes you got to clean off the windshield when you want to drive it in. But if you look back at that vehicle coming in, there should be way more snow all coated. That thing was on the back of a ramp truck. There's nothing on the roof. There's a bunch on the footwell, the foot step to go into the car. But there's nothing on the hood. There's nothing on the roof. There's no snow on that.
No.
Yeah, so that's also very odd too, which is why I think that some of the clips that I even posted earlier today, where there's like the 29th, the 30th, 31st, maybe that was like a little bit of it was staged. Like those were just export clips, and they just put them in a timeline and then, rearrange them a little bit, if that makes sense.
Here, I can add.
Could be that, or they could have just cut the whole video. But I find it very hard to believe that there are so many clips that we saw. And
I think it's how we originally came up with is they took it off the truck, they brought it in, did what they had to, backed it up just outside of what the cameras got. Told those guys right there in that top corner, go stand back where you were. Right? They go stand there. Yep. They drive the thing right back in. That's why I think and everybody does. Everybody thinks that all that snow that's on that ground right there in front, that's on the right side of the screen by the dummy that she was talking about right there.
The blue cooler, yeah.
Yep. Is the snow that came off the car from the first time it got pulled in. All right. So they backed it back out and they brought it back in. All that snow was off of that car. I just don't know why they were not so nonchalant about, hey, go clean that up. Don't make just go clean it up, and you see them just kind of nonchalantly cleaning, shoveling it up while everybody else.
What was that? That was weird.
Yeah.
John, I'm going to have you answer this. Was Crawford around last summer when they released this video? Was she working?
I think so. She's been there for 20 years.
Yeah. She just wasn't really. They didn't really say her name a lot, but I don't think they even said her name. Trial. Maybe once did it come up? I don't know. I don't think they did.
I didn't hear her name come up at all in trial.
I can even show you what I did with the camera testing, so I'll just share. So these are some of the lighting tests that I did. So this is 5 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just zoomed in.
Are those kegs?
They're keg stools.
You have keg stools as your chair?
I do. They're like little bar stools. My stepdad made them.
And is that your staircase to go up to your second floor?
Yeah.
You know what's weird is the house. So the house we bought, my fiance and myself, before we bought it had that same staircase, but they changed it out to a regular traditional wooden staircase. And I wish it had still had been like that. I would have loved that in my house.
Yeah, it's
They're
the
really
cats
easy to
love it.
slide
So I have like
down.
3 cats, so they like to have. So I have one staircase that goes up to the loft, and then I have another one that goes up to my room. So there's like 2 staircases. The cats love it, and you can see like even in this, like if you look at the photo, like just like this screenshot, and this is like the lower lighting. So the higher lighting, you know, like you can get. It's like if you go back a little bit, you can still see it, but you kind of have the light here going at the camera.
Yeah, you should have closed
So
that.
you can't see it as good far back. But even when you go to like 10 feet, you know, like you can still see a picture. You can still see some details like in the background and stuff like that. So like this camera is actually not bad.
No, just
And
imagine
the
all the bras
sallyport
going up
with
and down that
lighting going
staircase.
down, it would be probably a little bit better. What?
He
Well,
said,
it was a
imagine all
brassiere
those
factory.
bras.
Yeah, there would have been brassieres going up and down those stairs.
I know, right? I mean, I wish they had like lights coming down because it would be more accurate. But it's just like one of those things that you can kind of like look at where this is just little motion, you know, not motion test, but this is just like distance test. Just test.
Oh, I was going to say is, do you have right there? Well, there's the cat. So do you have it? So you said it happened one time, only one time in which something just kind of disappeared. Could you, so on your video, you can track that cat from the beginning to end without it teleporting Star Trek style?
Oh yeah, I mean the whole thing was the whole thing was smooth. The only time that it actually did that was I was walking up the stairs, and I had the 5 feet motion. So I did like a motion perimeter from probably like here to the carpet edge where the 5 feet marker was up here. So I think it had a little bit of a lapse. It was either a lapse in networking where it did have that kind of that Minecraft pixelation. But other than that, I mean, I never had any kind of ghosting in this camera, and I had it going for like 5 days.
Jesus.
Well, it wouldn't be the camera. It would be the system and the way it records.
Well, the camera is. Well, the it would more be the IP camera that's connected to the DVR. So I don't even think that was a thing. I think it was, again, kind of it being post-processed where it was 15 frames per second. And I did have that motion activation. I mean, the cats were setting it off. And like I said, even if you went 15 feet out or they went down the stairs and they got right in that motion perimeter, it would stay recording for like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes at a time.
Right.
So that's why I don't believe that. I think that whole thing is just kind of boogers, to be honest. I think it was cut. I think that's why you can kind of explain it that way. But even if you look at some of the masks, so where did I have this? These are the 2 things that I pointed out that I thought were really interesting. So you see this dummy in the middle, it's sharper than the top and it's sharper than the bottom.
So that's that partial blur that you added on your screen about 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so I think if they had a blur mask, it was like kind of like right here. So anybody walking into the frame, they would only have their waist seen right here. And then if you kind of made a little bit of a circle ellipse right here, you know, you could kind of cut off anybody's faces. Like that's
I
where
can tell you right now, if you had pressed play, about 10 seconds later, you'd see a guy behind that vehicle sweeping or shoveling or something. The guy just appears. And see how much I studied this one video. And then the problem is where they come from can only be that door next to the R in 13th Juror or outside through the bay, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, there's another door to the back.
Yeah.
There's another door to the very back, right near those little doors right by the back bay. Still doesn't matter. There's no way he should have made it all the way and pick up a broom before it records him.
Yeah, I mean, no, like this camera, and just think about it this way. This camera it's higher up. It's about 8 feet. And we already know that with that camera, just on a test that I did, you can see at least 15 feet, like clear. And this actually also in the manual, you can see like clear faces at 15 feet. And we know the lights are coming down, so that wouldn't really impact the image. So if we were looking outside and the sunlight was coming in at the camera lens, you might again, maybe it would be a little, what would I say, a little unclear, just because you would have overexposure. But we have to think about the lights are coming down. All the faces should be very, well recognizable within this. 'Cause I would imagine this right here is probably the 15 feet mark. So 15 feet is very realistic. It might even be shorter than that, but 15 feet you would definitely be able to see. But yeah, we see the, like that sharpness of the dummy. Over here, we still have a little bit of a blur mask. But if this was back compression, if you look at, in back compression affects lines. So if you had a very highly compressed file, these lines would be more pixelated, and instead they're very smooth edges, which would typically happen with pixelation. So that's where I say that this was definitely
look at her
edited. I
vehicle.
think there's a blur mask.
Look at her vehicle.
See how
Look
sharp
how
some of this.
detailed. Yes, look how detailed the vehicle itself is. But then now look at the bikes right behind the vehicle.
I actually think, and that's where I'm saying this blur mask goes right over here, right? Because we can kind of see, like, look at this detail. It's almost aligning with the midsection of the dummy, which makes me think that this is kind of, we have that rotor tool where it would kind of go like over here, maybe, and then we still want to see the taillight, so maybe it went up a little bit. But if you actually look at the video too, and you see the smoke back here, we know that this is actually pretty well in focus if you play the video, the smoke, which again makes me think that why is this unnatural blur there? Like, this is an unnatural blur that does not happen.
Well, that's the smoke is the snow, right?
Yep. And it's it's very
and it's that circle where we were just looking at the snow.
Yeah.
About well, now you just changed it on me.
Oh,
about
sorry. Let me
that's okay.
turn it back up.
I saw it. But yeah, that's light.
So about a few
through the-
inches to the left of that top circle that you had where the snow is, that's where the other camera is that they were showing them working on the taillight, which is way closer than this camera. And so what Abby's saying is, at 5 feet, 10 feet, everything should be pretty good.
Yeah, everything should be very clear, even at 20 feet.
And you don't even get that on the other camera, which when you show that picture again of that vehicle, you can almost see right where that camera. Oh, what happened? That wasn't me.
Oh, did you? Oh,
that was me.
I actually have the. If you want to pull up my screen, I just shared my screen because I can show you kind of the distance of what we're talking about again, just as like a refresher.
Yeah.
No, I don't want that one. Bring back top.
Sorry, this is like, I know this isn't like the great. Wait, hold on. My apartment looks like a mess in that one. I literally was trying to do that. Hold on, let me go back. Cause that's, this is probably better accurate lighting if what we're talking about. So if you go, oh crap. So here is 20. This is actually 25, 30 feet. So where the couch edge is 20 feet. And you can see how clear that is. Like that pattern on the pillow.
On the pillow, I can see like your cup or bowl on the side table.
So you can see a lot of,
by the way.
Yeah, you can see a lot of different detail, and that the lights are actually pretty interesting too, which is why I did that, because these aren't white lights, you know.
You need to clean
and they have a glow and they
have
have a flicker. So I'll just get back to the other image though. But we were talking about this. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's
but
all right. You need to clean the stove because you can see your stove from there. So that top circle, your top yellow circle, if you move your mouse up there, if you went above that first door that's to the left, so the small little door that the camera would have been right above there. That's looking down at Wanless putting the blue gloves on.
Yeah,
that
the red hats.
That should have been as clear as what we're seeing here at of the stuff. There was another one. We actually have. I didn't even think to put it there. There was a picture of this crew, the old police car that had been circulating around. Remember, it used to have the sign on it that says "Support Your Kid in Police."
Yeah.
You know, it should have been that clear that you could have read poster, or you could have seen who was who in there.
Yeah, and even like if you look at the police, you look at the police down here, this is right near the camera. Like this should be super sharp and super in focus. And I also mean, because again, with production, you always have to kind of put in all the different variables. And I also considered, like what would a dirty screen, a dirty lens look like? With dirty lenses, you would see like lens artifacts, which you don't see anywhere.
Yeah. Did you notice that? You don't see like a dot. You don't see a dot that no matter what is always in that same spot.
You don't. Right. And that's really important to note why it wouldn't be a dirty lens.
Yep.
Guys, totally this is what we call a differential diagnosis that Abby has done.
I mean, I clearly have too much time on my hands, but it's fun. It's a fun, nerdy thing to do. I don't know.
No, it's fantastic.
How do we do? How did we do? Do we do all right?
This question. Oh, John, you're going to be my new manager.
Okay, good. I'm just glad I did okay because I'm not. I always get nervous. I'm trying to oversimplify things or trying to do analogies because sometimes I just go on a rant and I'm like, "Here's this," and I make it overly complicated. People are like, "I don't know what you're talking about."
No,
right, does it say how many people? Right, does it say how many people are watching us? Like 6, 8, 12? How many people?
So in my top left-hand corner, and I'm
right
sure
now,
this.
If anyone's got any questions, fire them away right now.
Okay, 5:59. I'm sure that's combined on Twitter.
Let's fire away some questions. Put up. Let's see what they have for us.
Yeah. Guys, please bust a caps lock for your questions. It helps it kind of stand out to me a little.
Make it look like you're shouting at us.
Please do. It won't offend me. This is a caps friendly zone. Okay, so we already got Nikki's question about the Proctor thing. She also says that she loves it, Abby, and appreciates you and your expertise, and she appreciates John. Just for being John.
Great work. He's been helping me out since the beginning. I tagged you in a post the other day, by the way, because I remember when I first started this, when you first started following me, you gave me such good tips.
Oh my God, I saw that. I was like, oh my God, I got tagged in a post that somebody wasn't hating on me. The only time I get tagged is when the trolls are just going after me.
And y'all, if you haven't been following Abby, you also may remember a strange video that popped up out of the clear blue sky during the jury deliberations that supposedly showed Karen and Alan Jackson. Which,
y'all the one that debunked that?
Abby debunked it. Yeah, she figured out that was
with his wicked long forearm.
Look, I saw it. I'm like, look, this is totally AI.
It was so
I
bad.
could tell AI from a mile away.
And the hairline. It was the forearm and the hairline. Those are the two things.
Well, for me, I looked at the car had supposedly pulled up at a restaurant or something, and they were having a valet drive the car away, right? Well, AI adds very strange things in strange places that you don't expect. On the side of the vehicle, there was a reflection of a random shopping cart. That, I mean,
I think it was a bike
they weren't
rack.
at a grocery store.
Yeah, it looks like a bike rack or something, or a grocery store. And I mean, at the end of the day, I looked at it, and the metadata, which is really what I went on, because I actually ran it through AI. So when the trolls say, "Oh, but you're lying, it's not AI," I actually ran it through an AI, one of the best systems that Facebook uses to identify AI, and it came back as suspect. You know what I mean? So it's definitely, I mean, visually, and again, it's more of the visual thing, but I would say 100%. I know for a fact that just based on there's a certain format for live photos. So the HEICs, like how HEIC live photos work, and then there's video. So basically, this video was a screen capture that was then converted into a live photo. And I know that because the metadata is there.
And then they both looked like they suddenly had spine alignment issues too. Like
It's so
the heads
fake.
weren't
Oh,
put
that
on
whole-
right.
yeah,
It was
that
so
whole- yeah.
bad.
I'll tell you,
I literally
Brandon,
said 100%. Nobody could get. I mean, I can't prove that. You know, like I can't prove if it happened, if it didn't happen. But all I know for a fact is that was not a live photo because
Yeah.
it was definitely had like video information. The capture information was
Mm-hmm.
simultaneous. There was a
It's-
lot of things in it.
the,
And a whole different color profile too.
the
So this isn't
technology
native.
these days is amazing. Like now, like you see put two pictures together and you can get anyone to kiss. It's like the stuff that they're coming up with left and right. Maybe it's just in my feed. I don't know.
No,
But,
it's not just in yours.
it's like at what point are you not going to be able to trust videos anymore? Boston Brandy? Yes, I think someone is going to.
Yeah, I
But
think
yeah,
it's going to be Kevin
trust
from
videos.
South Boston.
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, and I remember I think I got shit from like the Karen Reed side too a little bit because I was just going on. I'm like, you don't understand how dangerous AI videos are.
Oh, absolutely.
It was the upcoming election too, and we've seen this all for like election videos where you see AI generated content and it's a lot of misinformation.
Yep.
So this is
a
trend. It's gonna keep going and going and going. So. That's
I
why I was
watched
on
somebody like in real time use their daughter's voice, and it was to prove your point, Abby, of how dangerous AI can be. They took a couple and played their daughter's voice for them, like they were just typing what they wanted it to say, but it was the voice of their daughter.
Because their daughter only has to say 3 or 4 words into AI, and then
it catches everything. Yep, it's able to figure out.
I'm guilty of it too, because a couple of my videos, I did the same thing because I didn't want to narrate the whole thing. I gave it my voice and typed out the whole thing.
And they convinced this couple that their daughter had been kidnapped and that she was calling from her abductor's phone or something, like a blocked number. And so this couple was prepared to pay, whatever ransom or do whatever they needed to do. I mean, they were soiling their knickers thinking their daughter was in danger. And it was just AI, but like you're able to use that as a tool to get people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. It's so scary.
And they have the face.
While you're on that, hey Mullins, if that happens to you, do not pay. It's fake. Don't pay. Don't pay Mullins.
The face replace videos too, which is the trolls like to do I hate the face. I get anytime I see a troll do a face replace video, I'm just like on it. I'm like, that's irresponsible. You shouldn't do that. Because imagine if it was like your work that saw that and they didn't know any better, and then you get fired the next day, or that was your kid in high school and they got bullied. I mean, it's just there's so many awful
wrongfully
things
convicted.
Wrongly convicted, which we know like all this. Video can be very dangerous.
Let me tell you, the worst thing and the best thing that ever happened is right here. Worst thing and the best thing that's ever happened in our lives, technology-wise, right there.
Yep.
I have a love-hate relationship with technology. Some days I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I love this new beta version. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to destroy the world.
Well, look at me.
Still love it.
It was 6:59 and I couldn't get this stupid microphone to work. A $40 microphone. And now I'm happy as a clam because it's changing colors and I'm watching myself the whole night, just happy that I got a different color microphone.
We get a light show with the voice.
I know. Do you know how much it is to heat this place? Thank God I got the pellet stove going.
Okay, so
you might have a bra factory. I got this whole. I mean,
it's. I'll tell you what. Like it's. I like it because it's very big. It's like 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. It's great. It's affordable. It's like like one of those cool little nichey lofts. But I live in.
You had me at affordable
town. I don't live in a great town. I had a drive-by shooting the other day, which was that wasn't fun. So I've been complaining to my landlords. I'm like, yo, who are you renting to? This could be a nice building. It's an old bra factory,
Yeah, like
It's not
it
bad,
seems
but
like the type to pull like a hipster crowd or people who would appreciate historical
yes.
buildings.
Yeah.
You
Not drug
know,
Hey,
dealers. Like,
buzzing,
that's not a
for
good
truth.
thing.
Buzzing for truth. You put QQQ for a question, but then you didn't ask a question.
yeah,
You made a statement there, buzzing. Just
it
saying.
is really more of a statement, isn't it? But we
Statement,
do
buzzing.
agree with you.
Yeah.
The car was brought in, cleaned off,
I'm just
and then
happy an expert agreed with my analysis of these videos.
Hey,
isn't that just the best
I
to
agree with
get
all
that
of your
affirmation?
analysis, to be honest.
Lulu Bell would like to know, John, if you're taking your shirt off.
No,
It's
no,
cold,
that,
guys.
That was no. I mean, no. It's
Don't do that to
it's
John.
run its course. It's run its course. It was funny a couple times, and then it just you know it is what it is. I mean,
I love the hot tub video.
It put the point
I do too.
across that basically, you know, you want to do that, I'm going to double down. Uh-oh, lost Abby again. Abby, what are the possibilities for CC's quick? What? I don't have my glasses.
The what?
I don't want to wear my glasses.
Yeah, sorry, my computer keeps like skipping a little bit. I think my connection's
crazy.
bad.
Oh, that's totally for you. That one's you. I'm just going to sit here.
Abby, what are the possibilities for CC quick hash and frame report?
I think that's Pauline
nothing.
Crawford.
Yeah, nothing. I don't think that they're going to ever see that at all because you can't really do anything with it because they don't have the original file, which is the one that has all the encryption on it. So I don't think that they're going to get that at all.
Oh, thank you, Sherry. Appreciate you. We
behave
have the
today.
best chat, guys.
Behave.
Let's see. Any more questions? I think that does it.
There you go.
Well, guys, I so much appreciate your time. I could talk with you all night, but I've got a sick dog to take care of, and
Yeah, I know.
it's
she's
also
a cat person, so
it's also just getting late. But I really appreciate both of you giving all of us so much of your time.
this was fun.
I appreciate it. I'm sure we all in the Savage Patch appreciate both of you. So Abby, it would not shock me at all if someone from the defense were to reach out to you because, you know, now that they weren't able to get any of the original data, it's like this is now all that we have to work with. So it wouldn't shock me at all.
Well, I hope that if we can at least prove the two.
Sorry, go ahead. You go.
No, you go. I'm sorry. My computer is.
I was just going to say, you would think that just in general, knowing it was such a case, that they would have preserved it to begin with, just in case.
They did.
Because here's the thing. The library has a rule that basically says, if this is how I know that had Proctor done the right thing with the library and went to the library director and asked, they would have said, you know, if you have a warrant or, you know, come back with a court order or warrant, they'll give it to you. And they would have burned a copy for themselves of everything they gave him so that at least they had the backup of exactly what they gave him so that it matched. But he didn't do that. He went to the IT director who pulled from all the source. That's how I know that, well, you got the town hall, you got the library, you got the police station, that, you know, you got everything just by going to the IT guy who was more than, you know, and Lewis is a great guy. He probably just thought, I'm doing the right thing. I'm helping. This guy's asking for this. I'll give him the shared file. He can go in and grab what he needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, probably didn't mean anything by it.
Maybe that's a protocol that they probably should look into moving forward so that this doesn't happen again, so that the town has some sort of insurance on what they gave up. They can say, like Lewis, this isn't my CD. This isn't what I gave them. He could say, listen, this is the CD we gave. Everything we gave is on this. Should match whatever was on the other end, whatever was passed out.
Yeah. I think, you know what, as long as they can because I just have a feeling that they're going to, and again, I could be totally wrong, but the prosecution is going to go, well, we don't have the original file anymore, which I think that they do have it. I think that they do have it. They're just not giving it up. I think they definitely have it because they had it at trial, or supposedly without those EXE files. I think they have it. They don't want to give it over because they know that if they give it over, it's gonna throw off a fake. It's not going to be authenticated. And if they just say, oh, well, we lost it, what's going to happen is they're going to try to pull an expert up there and say, oh, well, our Equivision, you can't do that. You can't, if it's played in the Equivision player, it could reasonably be authenticated. So you have to kind of debunk it on this could happen. If I do an edited file and I could put it in Equivision, the media player, it could be done. Or B, like this is, you either have A or B. It could be a screenshot or it could be this. So you can rule both out at the same end. So I think that's really what that needs to happen. And then if that happens, basically the whole thing will be thrown out because they don't have the file or it just won't be presented. So I think that's kind of like the end agenda, just to kind of tie it up in a neat little present.
Kind of make it a wash. Makes me so sad too, because I mean they went ahead and scheduled that expert to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Which means they at least had to have had it.
They had it at one. I think they still have it. They just don't want to hand it over, and they're not going to hand it over because they know. Yeah, they're not going to hand it over.
Remember, they allowed screenshots of texts to come in, not the text itself.
Yep.
They allowed a download of Brian Higgins' cell phone.
Yep.
Before he threw it away, and just on paper, right? Here you go. This is what. Trust me, bro. This is what was in my phone.
Jabroni could have just typed that up,
right?
And
yep.
Yeah.
They allowed the screenshots of Allie and Colin. Like the stuff that they allowed.
But
yesterday.
they damn near didn't allow Dr. Russell. I mean, it's just
right.
That's my concern. Is that's what they're gonna do, and that's what they're planning on doing. Because why else wouldn't, if this was the original file and because they had it on a drive, like you saw it was on a drive. Like when they presented it was on a drive, which was recently found out yesterday when I looked at that. Like that whole like breakdown of what the files were. But there's a reason why they're not doing it, because if there's no files, they can literally say, oh, it's like a Celebrate thing. Oh, well, Celebrate says it can't, that's not possible, but it is possible. So that's where it's like, oh, well, just because it might have been a screen video. So method A, it's a screen video, or method B, they just replace that flavor, again, in the sandwich or the container, back to the analogy. But if you can prove that it can be done both ways, they can't say that, oh, this is authentic because it was played in the last trial. So I think that's really where, they're going to try to go with that, because I mean, look at what they got into last trial. Back to your point.
Yep. Yes. Yesterday, I was in town yesterday. I was with my brother. So we left his house, and he lives right near town hall. And so we turned onto Washington Street. We're heading towards the waterfall. So we passed the library. So the library's on our right. Mm-hmm. We're going towards the waterfall. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I made oh, there she goes again. She left every time I talk.
Oh, no, I didn't leave. I'm just grabbing some water real fast.
Okay. So, a couple of weeks ago, I saw that the Shell gas station right there in the center, which could be the place, maybe not, is where Julie got the donuts at the Dunkin' Donuts. That gas station has cameras. Those cameras would have picked up Chris walking home.
Yeah.
Right before that gas station is the Canton Co-op. That place has cameras on the buildings. It would have been on that side of the sidewalk that would have picked, because Chris would have come out of the waterfall and turned right and started walking past Apollo and the post office and then the bank. What bank doesn't have cameras all over it?
Yeah.
And even if he says, well, I crossed the street. Well, so yesterday we were coming from the library, heading through the center, and right there on the same side, on the side of the street, like as if you're heading into the center, when I was growing up, it was the Bay Bank, and then I think it became Bank of America, that. I look up and I'm like, I see the two giant dome cameras. I'm like, even if it was on this side of the street, there's two cameras right there. I'm like, like there's cameras everywhere that would have caught him walking home. And then they could have just said, there you go, he walked home.
Cops didn't
But
even
they don't
ask him
have
for
that.
it, though.
It's about
They don't have
more
a
of
lot
what
of
they
things.
don't have than what they do have.
And the thing is, they
Yeah.
do have is the problem
Right.
in the fact that
Exactly.
it's not authentic.
Yeah.
So that's
I've-
where, yes.
Yeah,
that's
I've
what I
Same
seen
thing with the leaf
guilty
blowing.
people get acquitted with stronger cases against them.
The same thing with the leaf blowing. If you watch their video of Gallagher leaf blowing, it's as clear as day. Because why? It was shot with one of an iPhone or one of a newer phone that you can see everything, and yet not one bit of taillight anywhere. Right? You can see that the snow where he's standing is a couple inches over his feet. And they want to say this is where John was. Well, then why wasn't the grass there? And everyone wants to say, well, it snowed after you left. No, this was 7 o'clock after they picked him up and brought him away. There's no way that much snow fell from 6:15 to 7 o'clock when the leaf blower showed up. So, I mean, the stuff that they show you, it's just, like you said, the evidence that they have versus the evidence that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this is less about Karen Reed and more about making sure that nothing ever comes of this after the fact.
Yeah.
And I think, in my personal opinion, is going to be is certain people are going to get in trouble for some of for these actions. Same thing with like Brian Higgins. He had a buddy of his help him extract everything from his phone at a kiosk, right? Personal gain, using government stuff for personal gain. So you don't think that buddy now is going to be in trouble for doing that, to show him how to do it? He knew what he was getting into, right?
I think there needs to be a lot of accountability. And I think that too, like when I first did the sallyport, I guess my main mission was I was just like this is dangerous.
Yeah.
If police can cook evidence like this and have it be admitted in a trial, like that's concerning. It could happen to anybody.
The fact that other trials can use information that in this trial they can't. That's the problem. You either use it across the board or you don't use it. So Life 360 works in other trials. It doesn't work in this trial. Life 360.
Celebrate works in other trials.
Celebrate. I know we're getting a little off the topic of the Sallyport. Yeah. So I promised myself just stay in my head. I'm like, stay on the Sallyport, stay on the Sallyport. But the thing is the technology. So you have Allie McCabe who says, and once again, if they're telling the truth, if she picked up Colin at 12:10, like she says she did, and brought him straight home. Thank you, Barry. If she brought him straight home to the condos next to the library, well, she picked him up 12:10. It's about it's at most 6 minutes. 5 minutes, 6 minute drive from Fairview to the library. Okay. Well, Chris didn't leave the waterfall walking. He said once again, he's walking home. Everybody that left that waterfall had to drive by Chris's home to get to 34 Fairview, yet nobody offered him a ride. Right?
Right.
Okay, I want to walk. It's a snowstorm. I'm going to walk. Okay, you're going to walk home. Colin should have beat him there, or they should have met at that front door, and that didn't happen.
Yep.
So
it's very interesting.
Exactly. So they want to use technology on one side and not on the other. I hope.
Right.
I honestly don't think there'll be a second one. That's just my opinion. But I want to say I hope there's a Life 360 expert in the next one,
and possibly a Waze one.
Yeah, I think if there's I don't know if this is going to go to trial. I think it's a shit show. I think it's a shit show. I was
We didn't
waiting
think it
for
would
the
go to trial the
Sallyport.
first time.
Well, I mean, even
I thought it was. I thought the first time, but I didn't think. I don't think it's the second.
I thought the first time it was gonna like I was like, yeah, this is gonna be over. You know, I was just on it for a few months. I'm like, I just want to see what happens with it. And then when it was a mistrial, I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait for the Sally port because it's just one of those things that you see that you're just like, oh my god, how did they do it? Like,
Right.
how did they do it with the play from everything from Equivision? How do they do it with the like with the camera? Because I've never even seen a camera like that. So then I've been waiting for like the last year. I'm like, oh God, please come out with the Sally port. Please come out with the Sally port. And they came out and they didn't have the original file. I was like, yes.
Oh my God.
It was probably like the best day of my like year.
At the end of the day, it's just I honest to God believe it's a handful of people. It's all the family members with a couple of other people. And then everybody else, it's either doing their job the way they're supposed to do or not really doing their job the way they haven't, which has made this such a farce.
Agreed.
Jim, you're right about Andrew. I'm friends with Andrew. And yeah, he says that everybody's just so mad at this point that none of this has gone right, and it's been such an embarrassment that they're just going to keep re-prosecuting Karen no matter what.
They have to, because they can't admit that this has actually happened. Because once they do, everything else falls.
The floodgates will open. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's going to be
I think
more.
sometimes you got to fold though. I think they should just fold. Just fold. Admit you were wrong. You know, it's better for PR. You know, just be like, look, we screwed up.
I agree. Drop the case and make it a cold case. How's that? I don't really like that idea, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, I think at some point, you know what they always say: you got to walk away from the table when your chips are up. Walk away. And
I don't think they're playing that. I think they're playing deny till you die.
The problem is they're not playing with their own money. They're playing with taxpayer money. So they're just you know, hit me. You know, it's just nonstop. Yeah. They think they're gonna hit one. Yeah.
You know, like if she walks, it's gonna look worse for them. It's 100% gonna. I mean, it's already looking worse for them. They should have just never retried it and just said, "Yeah, you know, we don't have enough." They should have just washed it, because now it just looks embarrassing. It looks embarrassing for them. It's embarrassing for PR. It's embarrassing for politicians. And they should have just walked when they had the chance. And now it's just getting worse. Like they should have just took their chips and got the hell off of the table.
Yeah, that Karen that was just up. I think to a degree, Gallagher is just to a smaller degree. I think Gallagher was following. I said this to someone today. A few good men. Certain people just followed orders. Because people higher up than them told them what to do.
Red.
They were told what to do. They followed their orders because that's what a good soldier does. And I think Gallagher was a good soldier to Berkey. The fact, you know, the whole and to this point, this is why I think Lank isn't part of it. I think he feels like he was used, and that's just my opinion. I think Lank's not part of it. I think Gallagher was a part of it, to the degree of who shows up, who drives around in the winter with a tent in their trunk, but no cold weather gear. Like, he was on the force for how long? And
30 years.
30 years, and he has nothing at home that he can throw on. He had to drive to the police station first, right? To get a jacket, cold weather gear.
But it just so happens you've got a tent. Yeah.
But he had a tent that was unusable in the back of his car. And then he came up with the idea of, well, I saw it in the video, I'll use a leaf blower. But Lank did it almost the right way. He basically said to Jen, hey, we need to speak to the homeowners. He should have gone in to check first. Should have been a wellness check to make sure everyone's all right. You send the police in first before you send a civilian in. But I don't 100% fault Lank in this. I think Sarah, just night shift doing his thing. Mulaney, rookie, just doing his thing, right? And I think certain people used they used the weakness of friends and family against them.
You know, and on top of that, I think there were a couple people who, you know, they made one mistake.
Oh, we froze.
Oh.
And then it was, we have to play the tape the rest of the way through.
Yeah.
You know?
Because they never thought it would get this far. She was going to make a deal.
Yeah.
Plea.
Yeah. So sad.
I don't know how many times I see on Twitter that plea, Karen, plea. You know, just nonstop. I'm like, oh, here we go again. That person. You know. Yeah. So I think certain people. I think it's total. A few good men. Just do what we tell you. Just do what we tell you. Everything will be all right.
That's not.
And that's why at the end of the day, it was Berkey, Tully, Brian running the show.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, guys, I really, again, appreciate y'all giving so much of your time to all of us and helping us learn a little bit or a big bit about how all this shit works, how they...
That wasn't me. That was all Abby.
Well, how they messed with that file. I mean, just crazy. We were able to, you know, through Abby, get it narrowed down to 2 possible ways that these files were tampered with. And we can pretty much say for certain that it was tampered with.
One or 2 ways.
Yeah.
One of 2 ways.
One of 2 ways. So.
And they really, what's the word? I'm trying to make a joke. It really bites.
BYTES.
Or if you're Shannon Burgess, it really bits.
It really bites. It really bites. That's the word I'm looking for in my joke. It really bites. Like a lot of other things in this trial.
Don't you have a T-shirt that says BYTE bite me?
I do. I sold it on Etsy because it was I was on Aussie Insider's show and we looked at that motion and I'm like, wait, are they mixing up bits for bites?
Oh Lord. How
I was like, oh my God, I don't think they know the difference. And so we actually worked on that one together and like breaking that one down. But yeah, I'm like, yeah, dude, they think that memory chips are in bytes. Like, that's crazy.
Wow. Wow. Guys, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap all this up. Please make sure that you are back tomorrow. We're gonna go through.
Oh, I can't.
Jennifer.
I have hockey tomorrow.
What's that?
I have hockey.
Okay, I and the chat, we will be going through Jennifer McCabe's 911 call because I don't seem to remember hearing about her getting out of the car and seeing John at all before describing to the police all his injuries, saying that there was blood on his face, right? So we're going to go through that phone call bit by bit. Not bite by bite.
Have you done Kerry Roberts? Bit by bit. Have you done Kerry Roberts yet? Have me back on when you do the Kerry Roberts.
I'll have you back on for Kerry for sure.
I got video because the stuff that I have on that one too.
All right.
Before I go, I just want to say hi to Officer Mullins, Detective Mullins.
Hi, Detective Mullins. Yes, I've brought him up on the screen a couple times. Yeah, glad that everybody was able to stop by and see this because we now don't have the original files. This is all we've got to work with. There you go. Guys, this is just an itty bitty baby channel, so you can help the channel a lot by liking the video, obviously by subscribing, and maybe even sharing with a friend who you think might like this stuff. If you'd like to help support the channel, because the channel does have bills, there are means and methods by which you can do that scrolling along the bottom. And please make sure you come back for some Jennifer McCabe smack talking, because it's going to be a good time.
I'll join in for that. I'll be a viewer.
Okay, yeah, perfect. So tomorrow at 6 Central, we're gonna get down to it. I'm sorry, 6 Eastern, 5 Central. I might get one of those time zone maps or something because there's just so many of us from so many different places. This
9:40.
case.
You told me it was an hour show.
Oh well,
Okay.
you know, things happen.
Ugh,
Things happen. So,
happy. Ugh.
and I think it's the fact that we all have ADD, and I don't think any of us are medicated, right?
No, mine is self-diagnosis. But I get it. I can tell. You know, the hyperfixation on things and just I just 100% in, 100% out. Just there's a whole ton of
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we do what we can. When you feel that you're ready to, you know, actually get treatment for it, I'll
No,
finally go to the doctor.
nuts.
I mean,
No.
yeah,
Hey, I love my Adderall treatment. Like, you know,
No.
I'm going to
I've
Adderall.
got treatment right here. That's my
there
treatment.
you go. Yeah,
I do Adderall and coffee, and like I have to say, like so I think when I was 15, I was still drinking coffee, and like, you know, I've been on
Adderall
that
got my
regimen for
stepdaughter
years.
through college.
Yeah, for me it's just
I
coffee,
thought
coffee,
I was like
coffee.
10, you know, it's not bad.
No,
It works.
I don't do needles. I don't do drugs. I don't do ass. I don't do no medicine.
Well, you know,
man,
Shatira, you can always use Shatira. It's one of the I think it's like doesn't have the amphetamines or the Ritalin or whatever. I think some people say that works for them.
What is it?
It's a Stratira, I think.
Is it a pill?
Yeah, it's like a pill.
Yeah, I don't do that.
It's like an antidepressant. I
Well,
think
I
it's
just
like an
started eating
antidepressant.
vegetables for the first time.
Or just drink a lot of coffee and drink a lot of Red Bull. That works too.
There you go. See
Man,
that?
oh,
There's
man.
mama. There's mama.
I think we can all just remain helpless together. So,
But-
all right, guys.
All right.
Well, I hope
ahead.
you all
You can
have a
boot me.
fantastic night. Take it easy. Peace, love, and butt dials.
Nice meeting you,
I'm
Abby.
gonna pull y'all down. Much love to both of you.
Thank you for
please-
having me on your show.
Oh, of course, please stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. Anybody's welcome back anytime. So,
I think that
all right.
well.
Yeah, definitely. All right, y'all have a great night.
Bye.
All right, have a good one.
Oh. I hope y'all loved them as much as I did because they're just both fantastic humans. So, anytime y'all would like to make any requests or suggestions or submit something to me, the channel now has an email. So hoorah, it is Brit with 2 T's, Brit Happens Channel @gmail.com. So I'll be sure to kind of put that up as we're finishing the stream here. Again, if you'd like to help support the channel, it's very much appreciated. It's an itty bitty baby channel, so there are means and methods, Venmo, Cash App, all that, scrolling through the bottom. I really appreciate each and every one of you who has popped in. Please be sure to leave your touch DNA evidence on the like button and be back here tomorrow at 6 Eastern time. All right, y'all take care. Have a wonderful night. Peace, love, and butt dials and all the things. Bye.